Chapter 1567. Murong Jingyue could be considered as an ambitious and ruthless person. Now that Song Qingshu had the technique to directly control souls, he knew that he would not be able to escape this time. No matter how many people came from the outside, they would not be able to save him. Instead of falling into the enemy's hands and suffering a fate worse than death, he might as well end his own life. Just when Song Qingshu was slightly distracted by the sudden arrival of the soldiers, Murong Jingyue suddenly gathered all the power in his body and resolutely severed his meridians to die. In fact, if he could avoid death, he would definitely not choose to die. However, regardless of whether it was Song Qingshu, Zhao Min, Icy Snow, or even Empress Xiao Guanyin, they all had a reconcilable feud with him. They would definitely not let him go. Since he was going to die, he might as well end his own life. Originally, he wanted to drag Zhao Min down with him. However, it was a pity that his entire body was restrained now. Even the strength to commit suicide was obtained after much difficulty. How could he have the strength to bring Zhao Min along with him? Sensing Murong Jingyue's abnormality, Song Qingshu turned around and was shocked to find that Murong Jingyue was already dead. While he was shocked, he could not help but admire Murong Jingyue's ruthlessness. So what if he was ruthless to others? He was ruthless to himself. With the number one beauty of Mongolia buried with me, my death isn't in vain. Ha ha! Murong Jingyue could finally speak. He laughed wantonly and breathed his last. Song Qingshu pulled Zhao Min into his arms. Are you all right? I'm fine. Looking at Murong Jingyue, who slowly fell to the ground, Zhao Min's face turned extremely pale. Don't worry, I'll definitely cure you of the poison. Song Qingshu quickly comforted her when he felt her slightly trembling body. Yes, you should go and see them. Zhao Min nodded, but her heart was icy cold. Previously, when she was poisoned by the 3-corpse brain divine pill, she had utilized the power of the entire Ryong mansion, but unfortunately, she was still unable to find a way to cure the poison. She could only find out which 3 types of venomous insects were used by the person who poisoned her. Now, although she knew one of the 3 types of venomous insects, there were still 2 types of venomous insects that she didn't know. There were thousands of venomous insects in the world, and trying to find the antidote was no different than a fantasy. At this moment, the noises of the soldiers were getting clearer and clearer. They would be arriving soon. Song Qingshu didn't have the time to pay attention to Zhao Min's thoughts. After helping her to sit on the stool, he ran over to help Icy Snow and Su Quan up. At the same time, he took out the antidote for the sorrowful wind softener and placed it in front of their noses. So smelly, the 2 girls pouted and finally regained their strength. What do we do now? Hearing the voices of the soldiers outside, Su Quan said with a worried expression. Now that Yelu Yisin was dead here, and their identity was sensitive, they would definitely be pursued by the soldiers of Liao for thousands of miles if they ran into them. Song Qingshu also felt that it was a little tricky, but when his eyes fell on the human skin mask that Murong Jingyue had broken, he suddenly had an idea. I have an idea. When a group of soldiers rushed in, they found Yelu Yisin sitting on a chair in a sorry state. There were some bloodstains on his face, and he was surrounded by several outstanding beauties. Everyone's minds were filled with question marks. Where's the assassin? Where's the hostage? Wasn't it said that a man took Prince Wei away? At this time, Yelu Yisin was naturally Song Qingshu in disguise. He picked up the mask that Murong Jingyue had broken by the sword aura and pieced it back together. He was a master of disguise. Although the mask was broken into several pieces, it was not a problem for him. Some of the disguise materials he had were enough to make up for the cracks. Of course, he wasn't completely flawless, so he took some blood and smeared it on his face, pretending that his face was injured. This temporarily averted the immediate danger, and he had enough time to remake a perfect mask. I was brought here by the thieves. Fortunately, I was rescued by these ladies and chased them away. Song Qingshu pointed to Zhao Min and Icy Snow beside him and said, imitating Yelu Yisin's voice. As for Su Quan, she naturally took off Xiao Guanyin's mask and revealed her original face. At this time, She naturally could not appear as the empress. Someone, come and take a look at Sir's injury. A person who looked like a general hurriedly called out to his subordinates. No need, it's just a superficial wound. These ladies have already taken care of it. Of course, Song Qing-shu would not let a doctor examine it. Wouldn't the disguise be exposed immediately? This is the newly appointed commander of the imperial palace, Yelu Ta. He was promoted by Yelu Isin after Yelu Qi was framed. Zhao Min was worried that he did not know him, so she quietly introduced him to him. The one next to him, who looks like a civil official, is Zhuo Ili, Yelu Yange. He has always been close to Yelu Isin. As for Zhang Xiaojia, Zhao Min did not introduce him. After all, they had just met in the imperial prison. Song Qingshu nodded. He had interacted with Yelu Yange before and had interrogated him about the whereabouts of the Cold Moon Saber. The one on the far left is the Grand Protector Yelu Chesai, and the one on the right is the close attendant Zaba. They should be on duty in the palace, but they actually came here. It seems that Yelu Isin's kidnapping has made them all panic. Zhao Min lowered her voice and quickly introduced them to him. Song Qingshu was very impressed. Zhao Min was really amazing. She actually remembered some of the important people in Shengjing City. With her by his side, it really saved him a lot of trouble. Who is this? At this time, the people who came in had already found Murong Jingwell lying on the ground and could not help but ask, "Oh, he's that thief's accomplice. He was killed by these ladies." Song Qingshu answered calmly. In order to prevent others from knowing Murong Jingyue's identity, he had specially taken a mask to change his appearance. Song Qingshu knew that he would slip up if he spoke too much. If he allowed this group of people to come and ask about his well-being, who knew what kind of slip-ups would occur? Thus, he immediately stood up and assigned tasks to everyone. Some of them were to track down Shui Yi's people who had disappeared, some were to track down the remnants of the Imperial City Department, and others were to track down the whereabouts of the missing empress. After sending all the people away, Song Qingshu brought the three ladies back to King Wei's mansion. It was not that no one had suspected the three ladies' identities, but at this time, Yelu Isin's power was monstrous. It could be said that he was an existence that was second only to one in the whole of Liao. Who would dare to criticize his actions? With his identity, it was nothing for him to have a few female confidants around him. Besides, since they could drive away the Shui people who were highly skilled in martial arts, these ladies might be masters of sacrifice that Yelu Isin had carefully trained. Everyone had their own secrets. Who would be stupid enough to get to the bottom of it? After returning to King Wei's mansion and dismissing the servants, Icy Snow finally had the chance to thank Song Qingshu. "Thank you for avenging Big Brother Who. Sister-in-law, this is what I should do." Song Qingshu could not help but sigh when he thought of the situation where he met Murong Jingwei, when he had just transmigrated to this world and was in dire straits with Icy Snow and Icy Snow. The two of them sighed with emotion. Su Quan, who was beside them, said, "Qingshu, what should we do next? Are we going to continue living as Yelu Isin?" "No." Song Qingshu shook his head and looked out of the window with a deep gaze. "Let's enter the palace." Chapter 1568. Enter the palace? The three women froze. "Yes." Song Qingshu nodded. "Yelu Isin has too many confidants. I can hide it for a while, but I can't hide it forever. I should take this opportunity to cut the knot." Song Qingshu's eyes darkened. "Today is messy enough. Let's make it even more complicated." Very quickly, the Wei Palace sent people to secretly gather the king of the northern courtyard Yelu Horu, the king of the southern courtyard Yelu Wuya, the envoy of the Northern Bureau of Military Affairs Zhang Xiaojia, the commander of the Imperial Palace Yelu Tabuyi, the Zhuyi Li Bai Yelu Yinggu, the North Forest Yushao Ritter, the Grand Protector of the Imperial Bodyguard Yelu Chadi, the Direct Attendant Saba, and the Prince Consort Officer Xiao Shimu. These people were the core of Yelu Isin's group. They controlled all the key departments in Liao's military, government, and palace. No one knew what they discussed. Soon, an imperial edict came from the palace. Yelu Isin and the others were summoned to the palace. The emperor wanted to ask about what happened today. Song Qingshu led the group into the palace and soon arrived at the imperial study. The emperor didn't expect so many people. He frowned. Why are they here? Song Qingshu imitated Yelu Isin's tone and explained. They participated in today's chase. Your Majesty can ask them directly. Oh, Yelu Hongji nodded. I heard the empress was kidnapped. Zhou Yili and Yelu Yin had to answer. Your Majesty, the thief's plan was thorough. He first sent someone to provoke the guards to attract the attention of the guards. Then his companions took the opportunity to break into the prison and kidnap the empress. Then what are you doing? Yelu Hongji directly smashed a teacup and interrupted him. How long has it been since the last prison break? So soon, there's another prison break, and it's the empress. What do you think we need is what Ili buy for? I deserve to die, I deserve to die. Feeling the emperor's anger, Yelu Yin kowtowed in fear. Song Qingshu took the opportunity to say, in fact, you can't blame Lord Zhou Yili for this. This time, it was Shui Yi, the commander of the Southern Song Imperial City Department, who came to break the prison. There are many capable people under the command of the Imperial City Department. It's really impossible to guard against them. These Southern barbarians are really hateful. On one hand, they said they would ally with us to attack the Jin Kingdom, but on the other hand, they did this kind of thing. Do they really think there's no one in our great Liao? Yelu Hongji's attention was indeed diverted. Your Majesty is wise, a group of people echoed. Suddenly, Yelu Hongji thought of something. He looked at Song Qingshu with a puzzled expression. I heard that Shui asked you for some Mandarin duck saber. The legendary Mandarin duck saber is in your hands? That's right. Song Qingshu did not deny it. Yelu Hongji's face tightened slightly, hesitating for a second before asking, what is the secret of the Mandarin duck saber? Your Majesty, please have a look. Song Qingshu said as he took out the Mandarin duck saber from his sleeve. When Murong Jingwei died, the Mandarin duck saber naturally fell into his hands. How could you bring a saber into the palace? Yelu Hongji's eyebrows twitched. He finally realized something was wrong. Song Qingshu ignored him. He handed the saber to Yelu Chaisai. Grand Guardian, please present this saber to His Majesty. Yes. Yelu Chaisai took the saber and respectfully walked over to Yelu Hongji. Seeing that the saber was in Yelu Chaisai's hands, Yelu Hongji breathed a sigh of relief. After all, he was a member of the palace, his grand guardian. But just as he was about to reach for the saber, something happened. Yelu Chaisai slashed at him with the saber. Yelu Hongji retreated in panic. After all, he was a king on horseback. Even though he was an emperor, he still had some martial arts skills. Although he managed to avoid a fatal injury, the sharp saber still left a large wound on his chest. Guards, protect His Majesty! Yelu Hongji shouted as he retreated, but his heart quickly sank. The officials below all looked at him expressionlessly. They had no intention of protecting His Majesty. At this point, Yelu Hongji knew what was going on. He looked at the door expectantly, but the guards outside didn't seem to hear him. He shouted several times, but there was no response. Yelu Hongji finally gave up. He didn't even look at Yelu Chaisai, who was getting closer and closer. Instead, he glared at Song Qingshu. Yelu Isin, I have always treated you well. How dare you plot against me? As the emperor, he knew that Yelu Chaisai was only a knife in someone else's hand. The mastermind was the most important. Song Qingshu shook his head. Yelu Hongji, no wonder everyone calls you a fatuous ruler. Even at this point, you still ask such a childish question. Yelu Hongji's face turned red. He was obviously furious, but he couldn't do anything to the other party. Looking at the shining knife coming closer and closer, he suddenly understood. Yelu Qi and Xiaoban, he's rebellion case. You were the one behind it? In the southern courtyard's King Xiaofeng is in prison recently. He returned to the Heart Courtyard and caused the Empress and the Northern Mansion's Prime Minister Xiao Bidi to be imprisoned. He finally realized that he was destroying his own wall step by step, cutting off all the forces loyal to him. That was why he was in such a difficult situation. Unfortunately, it's too late to realize. Song Qingshu shook his head. In history, Yelu Hongji had been bewitched by Yelu Isin, causing the Empress and the Crown Prince to die unjustly. Many upright officials had also died. Such a muddle-headed ruler deserved to die. After that, each of them stabbed Yalu Hongji to death. This was actually a necessary step in a coup. Regicide was no small matter. Usually, everyone involved would have to make a move to cut off everyone else's path of retreat. The last knife is for Wei Wang. They handed the knife to Song Qing-shu. Clearly, they didn't want Yalu Yisin to be left alone. Okay. Song Qing-shu took the knife and walked step by step towards Yalu Hongji. By now, Yalu Hongji only had half a breath left. Clearly, even without this knife, he wouldn't be able to live. Song Qing-shu raised the knife. Suddenly, there was a flash in the imperial study. Full moon. Everyone felt a flash before their eyes. Then, as if all their energy was sucked out, they fell into endless darkness. Watching the people in the room fall one by one, Yalu Hongji, who was on his last breath, had a glimmer of light in his eyes. Song Qing-shu said to him, "I've helped you deal with the people who killed you. You can die in peace." Yalu Hongji finally breathed his last, but his eyes were full of confusion. Clearly, he didn't understand what had happened even at the moment of his death. So this was Song Qing-shu's plan. Rather than being careful and still being easily discovered by Yalu Yisin's confidants, it was better to drive the tiger to the wolf. First, let them kill the emperor. Then, while everyone was complacent and relaxed, he would take out all of Yalu Yisin's confidants in one fell swoop, completely eliminating any future troubles. Chapter 1569. This time, those who entered the palace with him were all core members of Yalu Yisin's group. Each of them held important positions and controlled key military and political departments of the court. Under normal circumstances, it would be very troublesome to get rid of these people, but this palace coup was a very good opportunity. After all, regicide was not a sure thing. Under the circumstances of controlling the situation, the fewer people who knew the details, the better. Thus, in the imperial study, this group of big shots was at their weakest, giving Song Qing-shu a chance to cut through the Gordian knot. Song Qing-shu walked up to the dragon throne and took out Yalu Hongji's face mold. Very quickly, he created a lifelike mask. It wasn't that his disguise technique required him to take a model of the target's face, but it was faster and more convenient. After making the mask, he took off his own mask and put it on Yalu Hongji's face, then put Yalu Hongji's mask on his own face. Then he changed clothes. Seeing the bloody cuts on the dragon robe, Song Qing-shu frowned. But this was proof of the tragedy of the coup. After arranging everything inside, Song Qing-shu opened the door and staggered out. When Yalu Hongji had called for protection, no guards had paid attention to him because all the nearby guards had been transferred away by Yalu Chaisai and Saba. After all, one was the grand bodyguard and the other was the head guard, so it was convenient for them to do this. But once he left the imperial study, he could find the palace guards. No matter how powerful Yalu Yisin's group was, they could not control the entire palace guards. Seeing the emperor walk out covered in blood, the guards were shocked. "Your Majesty." Song Qing-shu raised a hand to stop them from asking. Instead, he ordered in a low voice, "Seal the palace gates. No one is allowed to enter or leave without my permission. All guards at the front of the palace. No one is allowed to leave without permission. No one is allowed within 10 zhang of the imperial study. Also, issue an edict to lift the northern prime minister's house arrest. Summon Shaoxi to the imperial study to see me." Song Qing-shu issued a series of measures. It was all thanks to Shui Yi's men that things had gone so smoothly this time that Song Qing-shu had managed to severely injure Xiao 11th Lang. Otherwise, Xiao 11th Lang, as the inspector of the front hall, would have controlled the imperial guards and cooperated with Yalu Yisin. Now that there was no leader, the guards who had been bribed by the Yalu Yisin group were unable to react effectively for a while. As for summoning Xiao into the palace, there was no other way. After all, although the core members of Yalu Yisin's group had been destroyed, he had operated for so many years and had many disciples and old officials under his command. If he didn't deal with them properly, when a powerful figure emerged and gathered this group of forces, it would be a headache for Song Qing-shu. When Wang Yun killed Dong Zhuo, he thought that he had settled the Shiliang army. When Emperor Xiaozhuang of Northern Wei killed Heir Zhurong, who had great power in the court, he did not expect that it would soon lead to the bitter revenge of the other party. Therefore, the decapitation plan was not as successful as Kangxi in capturing Oh Boy. There is no one more suitable than Xiao Pity to deal with Yelu Yisin's remaining forces. First of all, he was the prime minister of the Northern Mansion and had always been on the same level as Yelu Yisin. He was Yelu Yisin's mortal enemy. Second of all, he was Su Quan's father. To some extent, he could be considered one of them. When Xiao Pity received the news and rushed to the imperial study, he was shocked to see a room full of corpses, especially when he saw the faces of a few familiar faces. "No need to look," Song Qing-shu said weakly. Yelu Yisin tried a rebel. Fortunately, the king of the North Yard, Yelu Helu, and the king of the South Yard, Yelu Wuye, risked their lives to protect him. Unfortunately, after a chaotic battle, although the Yelu Helu brothers killed the rebels, they unfortunately died for the country. The reason why he removed the Yelu Helu brothers was largely because there was no way to explain the scene. He couldn't say that Yelu Hongji was a hidden martial arts master who suddenly dealt with the rebellion. Could he? What's more, the North Yard had always been powerful in Liao. If the king of the North Yard rebelled and was killed, his subordinates would rebel in fear to protect themselves. That would be troublesome. Now, not only did this appease the North Yard, but it also alienated the relationship between the North Yard and Yelu Yisin, causing the two sides to seek revenge and kill each other. Xiao Pity quickly glanced at the scene and sneered in his heart. The Yelu Helu brothers have always been close to Yelu Yisin, advancing and retreating together. Would they betray him at this critical moment? If I didn't know martial arts, I would really believe your nonsense. These people were clearly killed by a saber master with one blow. Although he saw the flaw, he didn't say it. After all, everyone in this position was an old fox, and he also understood that it would be easier to deal with the remnants of Yelu Yisin's group this way. But when he left the imperial study, he stole a glance at the emperor and suddenly felt that the muddle-headed emperor he had looked down on before seemed to have become somewhat unfathomable. For example, this time, he quietly dealt with Yelu Yisin, and he didn't know what kind of trump card he had hidden. But his family had always been royalists, and could be said to be tied to the interests of the royal family, so he didn't feel any unease because of this. In the next few days, the case of Yelu Yisin's rebellion was announced to the world. A series of related people were executed, and the Prince of Wei's mansion was also confiscated. Rebellion was a crime punishable by the execution of 9 generations of the family. But Yelu Yisin's only son Yelu Sui had died a violent death in the Ili Courtyard's prison not long ago, and his daughter Yelu Nanxian's whereabouts were unknown. The rest of his relatives were sent an edict from the palace. Since Yelu Nanxian still carried the mission of making peace with the Western Xia, they would be shown mercy and not be implicated for the time being. Song Qing-shu had no other choice. After all, Yelu Yisin was Murong Jingwen in disguise, and he couldn't really execute their 9 generations of the family. In the future, when Yelu Nanxian found out the truth, wouldn't she fight him to the death? But rebellion was a crime punishable by the execution of 9 generations of the family. Even as the emperor, he couldn't just absolve the crime with one sentence. Otherwise, wouldn't he be encouraging everyone to rebel? In any case, the crime could be pardoned in the end, but this would shake the foundation of the rule, and the other ministers would never agree to it. The higher a person's status was, the more helpless he was. In the end, Song Qing-shu had to use the marriage between the two countries as an excuse to barely save the lives of Yelu Yisin's relatives. After dealing with the matter of Yelu Yisin's family, Song Qing-shu also issued an edict to restore the reputation of Empress Xiao Guanyin. He said that the case of Hui Xian Courtyard Ci was all Yelu Yisin's plot to overthrow the prime minister's family and clear the way for him to rebel. A series of people involved in the case were executed, such as the palace maid Dan Deng and the musical house Red Crown Crane. At the same time, he took the opportunity to purge a large number of palace maids and eunuchs around the emperor and empress, so as not to find out that Yelu Hongji had been replaced. The palace guards also underwent a major change. The first to bear the brunt was Yelu Isin's trusted aide, Xiao 11th Lang of the front hall. However, because of the influence of the original work, Song Qing-shu hesitated for a moment and did not kill him. Instead, he threw him into the heavenly prison and would think about how to deal with him in the future. As for the military, the king of the North Courtyard, Yelu Helu and his brothers, as well as the palace guards, were deployed. After the death of Yelu Tabai and the others, there was a vacuum in power. Song Qing-shu couldn't think of a candidate to take over. After all, he couldn't hand over everything to the prime minister of the North Mansion, Xiao Pity. No matter how loyal a person was, if he had military, political, financial, and power in one person, it was hard to guarantee that he or his subordinates wouldn't have any disloyalty. As Song Qing-shu was holding the memorial in his hand, Empress Xiao Guanyin came behind him with a wisp of fragrant wind and gently massaged his shoulders. Song Qing-shu, you'd better go and see Miss Zhao. She doesn't look well these days, and I'm afraid something happened to her. Chapter 1570. It was only then that Song Qing-shu remembered that he had been busy stabilizing the political situation these days and neglected Zhao Min's feelings. Now that Murong Jingyue was dead and she didn't know the formula of the three-corpse brain pill, she would probably be overthinking things. After thanking Su Quan for her reminder, Song Qing-shu got up and rushed to the palace where Zhao Min was. After the coup, he brought Zhao Min and Icy Snow to the palace. Although the two girls were not used to it, they didn't refuse in the end for the sake of safety and convenience. Before he arrived, he could hear the melodious sound of a zither coming from a pavilion in the distance. After dismissing the accompanying palace maids and eunuchs, Song Qing-shu walked over quietly. He wasn't in a hurry to disturb her, but stopped to watch and listen. In the past, Zhao Min's zither music always faintly revealed a sense of heroism, but now the tune was sad and melancholy. It was obvious that she was full of worries. The night breeze blew gently, and Zhao Min's dress swayed slightly, making her less charming and passionate than usual, but more lovely and touching. It's cold at night. Go back to the room. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but say when he sensed that her body was faintly trembling. Zhao Min shook her head and looked at the bright moon in the sky. She said lightly, "It's too late to look at such a scenery. How can I not look at it more?" Song Qing-shu heard the frustration in her tone. Just as he was about to comfort her, Zhao Min turned around and said, "Speaking of which, I haven't congratulated you yet. Congratulations on becoming the ruler of Liao and easily controlling a country. I really admire you." Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly and said, "It's only nominal control. Now I'm dancing on tightrope. If I'm not careful, I'll be doomed eternally." Zhao Min curled her lips and said, "You little fox, you're still not telling the truth. You must be very familiar with this kind of thing. It's not as dangerous as you described." "Princess, why do you say that?" Song Qing-shu smiled awkwardly. Zhao Min stood up and revealed her tall and beautiful figure. She walked over and looked at him with a faint smile. "I had my doubts when I saw you disguised as Tang Quobian in the Jin Kingdom, but I thought it would be easier to impersonate Tang Quobian because of his big beard. It was not until I saw Murong Jingyue in your miraculous disguise that I realized you could easily disguise as someone else." Song Qing-shu hurriedly corrected him. Although Murong Jingyue's art disguise is not bad, it's mainly about changing his appearance. He can't disguise himself as whoever he wants. Previously, he had checked Murong Jingyue's mask and discovered that it wasn't made of plaster, but real human skin. It was clear that after he had harmed the real Yelu Isin, he had peeled off his skin, and that was how he had succeeded in impersonating him. Murong Jingyue's appearance-changing technique could only change his own appearance and disguise himself as someone that didn't exist. For example, Ping Yiji. He couldn't change his appearance to anyone he wanted to. In the whole world, perhaps only Song Qing-shu and Azu had this ability. "It seems that I underestimated your level of disguise." Zhao Min chuckled and said, "I thought you were just pretending to be a powerful minister of the Jin Kingdom. Now, combined with what happened in Liao, I'm afraid that you have already replaced the Jin Emperor. Song Qingshu's expression changed slightly. He smiled and said, "How is that possible? We are always together, and the Jin Emperor is still sitting in the Daxing mansion. You can teach the art of disguise to someone else." Zhao Min walked up to him and carefully observed his eyes. For example, according to intelligence, Tang Kuobian is also in the Daxing mansion. However, Song Qingshu's acting skills were well practiced. How could she see through him? Instead, he smiled and said, "Your breath is as fragrant as orchids. You smell so good, Your Highness." Zhao Min blushed and hurriedly took 2 steps back. She rolled her eyes at him and said, "You scoundrel! I'm complimenting you. Is it wrong to tell the truth?" Song Qingshu spread out his hands and looked helpless. Zhao Min spat. Obviously, she did not want him to change the topic. "Liao is like this. The Jin Kingdom is like this. I have reason to suspect that the Qing Kingdom, where you were originally from, is the same. When you assassinated Kangxi, everyone in the world knew about it. I always felt that there was something strange about it." Zhao Min tilted her head and looked at him. "This kind of reckless behavior is really not like you. But now I finally understand." Song Qingshu asked calmly, "What do you understand, Your Highness?" "The entire world thought that the assassination attempt ended in failure. You were wanted by the Qing Kingdom's imperial court and fled the world." Zhao Min paused and suddenly said meaningfully, "But now that I think about it, I'm afraid that Kangxi was already dead at that time. The reason why that kind of news was spread was only because you were trying to deceive the world." Song Qingshu was startled. He already knew that Zhao Min was smart, but he didn't expect her to be this smart. With just this bit of information, she was actually able to guess almost everything that he had meticulously planned all these years. But this matter was of great importance. If it was leaked, not only him, but also those confidants who had been helping him silently would be doomed. Feeling the sudden murderous intent in the air, Zhao Min shook her head. "You don't have to worry. Anyway, I'm a dying man now. I won't reveal your secret." "Your Highness, you must be joking." Song Qingshu calmed down. Now, whether it's the Jin Kingdom or the Qing Kingdom, their emperors are sitting in the palace, strategizing and running the whole empire to fight against their enemies. How can I control them? Zhao Min nodded and said, "This is also what puzzles me. To help you rule over a country, the puppet emperor must be absolutely loyal to you. At the same time, he must also have the ability to govern a country. But who doesn't have the ambition to be as high as the sky? In addition, he holds the power of a country. How can he be willing to be manipulated by you?" Song Qingshu suddenly laughed. "So, Your Highness, you're thinking too much." Unexpectedly, Zhao Min shook her head. "Whether I'm thinking too much or not, we'll know soon." "What do you mean?" Song Qingshu was stunned. Zhao Min revealed a sly smile. "Because you become the emperor in Liao, but you can't always be the emperor here. After you leave, I'll see how you arrange things here. Then, I'll know what you've done in the Jin Kingdom and the Qing Kingdom." Song Qingshu held his breath. He said in a somewhat cold tone, "Your Highness, haven't you heard that the less you know in the palace, the longer you live?" Unexpectedly, Zhao Min smiled nonchalantly. "But I don't have long to live. Instead of being a muddle-headed ghost, it's better to be a clear person before I die." After a pause, Zhao Min smiled sadly. "Compared to dying under Murong Jingyue's 3 corpses brain pill, I think it's easier to accept dying in your hands." Chapter 1571. What nonsense are you talking about? Why would I kill you? Song Qingshu said angrily. He remembered that Zhao Min had vaguely guessed his plans in various countries, so in order to prevent the news from leaking, he had to keep her by his side. Unfortunately, this way, she would inevitably know more of his secrets. This time, if it was just a guess before, she was still a little uncertain. Now that she saw that he had become the emperor of Liao, Yilu Hongji, Zhao Min didn't need to think to know what was going on. "Why can't you kill me?" Zhao Min smiled faintly. "This matter is so important. If I leak a little news, you will be doomed eternally. If I were in your shoes, I would most likely kill you, because in this world, only dead people can keep secrets." Princess won't kill me. Song Qing-shu shook his head. Why? Zhao Min was stunned. She didn't understand where his confidence came from. Because I can't bear to. Song Qing-shu said with a smile. Zhao Min was stunned, then shyly said, Who can bear to? You are too narcissistic. Song Qing-shu looked at her gently. Because I can't bear to kill you. Zhao Min blushed and turned her head away unnaturally. Humph. I am now poisoned and will die. It doesn't matter if you kill me or not, so you can say whatever you want. It is true that you are poisoned. Song Qing-shu paused, then said meaningfully, but you may not die. Zhao Min's heart skipped a beat. She turned her head and stared at him with a pair of big eyes, puzzled. What do you mean? At this time, looking at the watery eyes in front of him, her long and curly eyelashes trembled slightly, adding a liveliness to them, especially her slightly opened red lips, which exuded a moist luster. Seeing this, Song Qing-shu's heart skipped a beat. He directly lowered his head and kissed her. Zhao Min's eyes widened, and her mind went blank. Who would have thought that the other party would suddenly attack her? When she came back to her senses, the tip of her tongue had already been wantonly tasted by the other party. Pushing him away, Zhao Min was both embarrassed and angry. What are you doing? Your Highness, you should know that the higher a person's martial arts is, the harder it is to be poisoned. Song Qing-shu said calmly. Otherwise, I'm afraid the #1 expert in the world would be people like the Poison Hand King of medicine. It's a pity that people who use poison in Jianghu are never seen in public. That's right, Zhao Min nodded. The higher a person's power, even if they are poisoned, they can use their internal energy to force the poison out. After answering, she couldn't help but stomp her feet, thinking that this had nothing to do with what had just happened. If you want to talk about the world's martial arts, the most powerful one is Zhang Wuji's 9 Suns Divine Skill. After mastering the 9 Suns Divine Skill, you can almost be considered to be immune to hundreds of poisons. Song Qing-shu deliberately glanced at Zhao Min, but he didn't find any strange expression on her face after hearing the name Zhang Wuji. Besides the 9 Suns Divine Skill, the best one to force poison out is the Samadhi to stop movement and achieve Shinzu Scripture, which is also known as the Shinzu Scripture. It can even detoxify the cold poison of the ice silkworm. I think there are few poisons in the world that can't be forced out. You want me to learn the Shinzu Scripture to force poison out? Zhao Min's eyes moved, and she asked doubtfully, forgetting to question him. Recalling the postures that made people's blood boil when Shun Yuan learned the Shinzu Scripture, Song Qing-shu couldn't help feeling a little hot. He couldn't help imagining the scene of Zhao Min practicing this skill, thinking that it was a good idea to let her practice this skill. Zhao Min stretched out her hand and waved in front of his eyes. Hey, what's wrong with you? No, nothing. Song Qing-shu collected his thoughts and answered embarrassedly. The Shinzu Scripture can force out most of the poisons in the world, but the 3-corpse brain pill in your body has a special toxicity. I'm afraid that the Shinzu Scripture can't do anything. Oh, in fact, Zhao Min didn't have much hope. Hearing such an answer, she just snorted lightly. Since it can't do anything, why do you mention it? Don't worry, Your Grace. Song Qing-shu continued to explain. The reason why the Shinzu Scripture can't do anything to the 3-corpse brain pill is that the 3-corpse brain pill is usually not poisonous. The poisonous bug is suppressed by the medicine and usually hibernates in your brain. The brain is the most important and the most vulnerable part of the human body. Almost all the martial arts in the world can't connect the internal force to the brain, so naturally, it can't get rid of the poisonous bug from the brain. Almost all. Zhao Min was an extremely smart person. Hearing the hidden meaning in his words, she couldn't help but feel moved. Obviously, there are martial arts that can be practiced. Yes, Song Qing-shu nodded. Your Grace, you should know that I experienced a big disaster some time ago. I was poisoned by the golden rippling flower in Yangzhou and almost died in a foreign land. I've heard about it. Speaking of this, Zhao Min also clicked her tongue. Your Grace, you can't resist its poison with your martial arts. It's obvious that the golden rippling flower is indeed the most poisonous. The golden rippling flower is invisible and it's really hard to guard against. After being poisoned, It can block the human meridians so that you can't use your internal force to expel the poison. Song Qingshu said with lingering fear. Fortunately, I learned a magic skill by chance. Its route of operation is completely different from the ordinary meridian system, so I succeeded in expelling the poison. Xiaomin also sighed when she heard this, but she quickly reacted and said angrily with a red face, "What does this have to do with me? Don't try to change the topic. Just now Of course it has something to do with me," Song Qingshu interrupted her. "The reason why the three-corpse brain divine pill can't expel the poison with internal force is because the poisonous bug hides in the brain. Ordinary martial arts can't train internal force into the brain, but the magic skill I'm talking about opens the meridians in the brain. Is it that supreme mystery scripture?" Xiaomin also vaguely heard him mention the things he had encountered before. That's right, Song Qingshu stood with his hands behind his back. "Ever since you were poisoned, I've been thinking about the antidote. After all, Murong Jingyue was elusive at that time, and no one was sure that they could find him. Even if they found him, they might not be able to get the antidote. Now that I think about it, it's fortunate that I had a backup plan from the beginning." "You've been helping me think about the antidote?" Xiaomin looked at him blankly. "Of course." Song Qingshu recalled the princess in the movies and the real person he had come into contact with in this world. He sighed with sincerity. "You're a dream in my heart, in my past life, and in this life as well. How could I let anything happen to you?" Hearing his words, Zhao Min subconsciously lowered her head, as if she was afraid that he would see the expression on her face at that moment. For the past 2 years, when she thought about the strange poison in her body and saw Song Qingshu flirting everywhere, it was inevitable that some hidden bitterness would rise in her heart. Now that she knew that he had been thinking of ways to save her, all the resentment from before was instantly swept away. "Sect leader Zhou better not hear this, or she won't forgive you." When Zhao Min raised her head again, her face was full of smiles. Chapter 1572. Jiruo isn't as stingy as you think. Song Qingshu laughed. "Really?" Zhao Min stared at him with a faint smile. "Well, I'll tell her what you said the next time I see her. Let's see how she reacts." "Don't." Song Qingshu waved his hand immediately, looking embarrassed. "What? Are you still afraid of upsetting your girlfriend?" Zhao Min tilted her head with a playful expression. "I'm not worried about her. I'm worried about you." Song Qingshu looked serious and said calmly, "You're no match for her in terms of martial arts. If there's a conflict, you'll be at a disadvantage. I still have you." Zhao Min didn't care at all. "Are you going to stand by and watch your fierce wife bully me?" Fierce wife? Song Qingshu was speechless. He felt that these two were destined to be enemies. Yawn. At this time, Zhou Zhuo, who was far away in Yangzhou, sneezed. She rubbed her face in confusion. "Did I catch a cold because I've been too tired these days?" Okay. Let's get back to the poison in your body." Song Qingshu knew that the topic just now was a minefield. If they kept talking about it, they might get hurt all over. "I've been thinking about how to cure the three-corpse brain pill, and I finally came up with a solution." Under Zhao Min's doubtful and expectant gaze, Song Qingshu began to explain. "The reason why the three-corpse brain pill is so difficult to cure is that no matter how good a person is at martial arts, he or she will not be able to train the inner force into the brain. However, the Supreme Mystery Sutra has created a whole new meridian system that can train the inner force into the brain. The 23rd blade was a direct attack on the soul. It could not be launched by meditation alone. Of course, it required the development of internal force to stimulate the brain in order to provide continuous power to the 23rd blade. Originally, the soul transfer method in the Nining Sutra also involved spiritual attacks, but it depended more on the strength of one's spiritual force and willpower. The development of the brain was only a superficial study, and it was far less complete than the system in the Taishin Sutra. As long as I can train my inner energy to the brain, I can get rid of the foreign zombie worms lurking in the brain. When Song Qingshu said this, he could not help but lament that this world's martial arts were indeed amazing, but the medical level was still not as good as the technological civilization. If it was in his world, The 3-corpse brain elixir that Zhao Min was poisoned with could be directly performed with a craniotomy, or even without a craniotomy, directly using MRI, infrasound, and the like would probably be able to kill the lurking cadaveric worms. Of course, with the conditions of this world, Song Qing-shu did not dare to perform any craniotomy on Zhao Min. The Taishin Sutra is your greatest asset right now. If you teach it to me, won't you lose your greatest asset? Zhao Min looked at him worriedly. Who said I was going to give you the Supreme Mystery Sutra? Song Qing-shu looked confused. So I was thinking too much. Zhao Min immediately turned her face away, but her heart was still full of hatred. She stomped her feet and snorted. Seeing that the effect was almost there, Song Qing-shu said, "The Supreme Mystery Sutra is very mysterious. If you don't have enough cultivation, you won't be able to master the Taishin Sutra if you force yourself to practice the Supreme Mystery Sutra. With your current cultivation, I'm afraid it will take at least 20 years for you to master the Supreme Mystery Sutra. Unfortunately, by then, it will be too late." Then what should I do? Zhao Min kicked her feet and kicked a pebble into the lake. The ripples spread out layer by layer, seeming to reflect her chaotic heart. Although you can't master the Supreme Mystery Sutra in a short time, there is a ready-made person who can. Song Qing-shu mentioned the battle with Murong Jinghua. At that time, I used the 23rd sword to directly attack Murong Jinghua's soul. Similarly, I can also use the 23rd sword to attack the zombie worms in your brain. Can you really do that? Zhao Min's face was slightly pale. When the 23rd sword was used, everyone's soul seemed to be fixed. The feeling of destruction still made her feel a little scared. Don't accidentally destroy my soul. Of course, it's not that simple, Song Qing-shu said with a solemn expression. After all, Sword 23 is too aggressive, and the human brain is the most vulnerable part of the human body. If my attack is slightly off or a little bit heavier, not only will the cadaveric worm in your brain be destroyed, but your soul will also be destroyed. Zhao Min's face turned pale, but she was still intelligent and quickly responded, "Since you've put it this way, you must have some confidence. If I just use it like this, the success rate can be said to be 0. But if you promise me one thing," Song Qing-shu paused and said with a somewhat complicated expression, "the success rate will be infinitely close to 100%. Zhao Min frowned and said doubtfully, "Promise to keep the secret for you? I can promise you, but for people like us, how can we believe a simple promise from the other party? Of course, I won't let you promise me something so boring." Song Qing-shu hesitated and explained, "The thing I want you to promise may be a little difficult." Unexpectedly, Zhao Min waved her hand indifferently. "Don't worry. No matter how difficult it is, it can't be compared to dying. Just say it. I'll promise you. I think with our friendship, you won't harm me." "Of course I won't harm you." Song Qing-shu hesitated and finally said that thing. "I want to ask you to marry me." Zhao Min was a little thirsty after talking with him for so long. So after saying that, she picked up the teacup and wanted to moisten her throat. Unexpectedly, when she heard what he wanted her to promise, she directly spat out the tea in her mouth. "What did you say?" Song Qing-shu slightly leaned to one side and avoided her tea. "Since you've already heard it, why do I have to say it again?" "You." Zhao Min's face instantly turned red, and she directly turned around. "We were obviously talking about the method of detoxification. Why do we suddenly change to this kind of thing?" Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly. "Because it's related to the method of detoxification." Zhao Min turned around with a confused look on her face. Song Qing-shu had to explain, although Taishin Sutra can expand the meridians into the brain is a delicate and sensitive place. A little carelessness will cause irreversible damage. Everyone's body is different, and the brain is also slightly different. I'm only sure that I can get rid of the foreign body in my brain, but I'm not sure that I can get rid of the foreign body in other people's brains. Unless I'm as familiar with her body as I am with my own. To do this, I can only use the combination of Tantra Buddhism and Zen. You completely open your body and mind and let my genuine qi enter. After I'm familiar with every meridian in your body, I'm sure that I can get rid of the corpse worm in your brain. The more he said, the redder Zhao Min's pretty face became, but she finally understood what was going on. Song Qingshu continued, I don't want your grace to be innocent, so I propose to let you marry me. So, before he finished, Zhao Min interrupted him. No, I refuse. Chapter 1573. Song Qingshu was dumbfounded that his proposal was rejected so straightforwardly. Why? Zhao Min turned around, took a deep breath, and said, There's no reason. I'm tired, so I'm going back to rest. After saying that, the hem of her skirt fluttered, leaving a faint fragrance in the air. Song Qingshu was very depressed. He thought that his relationship with Zhao Min was good enough, and that his confession of love should have received a reasonable response. Unfortunately, reality gave him an ice-cold blow. After a while, he heard light footsteps behind him. Song Qingshu's first thought was that Zhao Min had returned, but he immediately dispelled this speculation. Not to mention that Zhao Min wasn't the kind of person who was willing to give in. The fragrance on her body was different too. Zhao Min's body exuded a rose fragrance, but this person's body only had a trace of indiscernible elegant fragrance, like an orchid in an empty valley, isolated from the world. Sister-in-law, you're here. Song Qingshu didn't need to turn his head. He was familiar enough with the other parties sent to know who she was. Icy Snow came to his side and revealed a gentle and elegant smile. Qingshu, why are you drinking alone here? Sister-in-law, you came at the right time. Drink with me. Song Qingshu didn't wait for her to respond and directly pulled her into his arms to sit down. Her gentle and alluring body warmed his cold heart a little. Icy Snow blushed and hurriedly struggled out of his embrace to sit on a stool at the side. Her eyes were filled with coquettishness and embarrassment. This is the Liao Imperial Palace. There are eyes and ears everywhere. If someone sees us, who knows what kind of rumors will spread outside? I'm Liao's emperor now. Who dares to control me? Song Qingshu snorted coldly, but he didn't hug her again. Icy Snow rolled her eyes at him. It's because you're wearing Yelu Hongji's appearance that it's weird to be hugged by you. Song Qingshu laughed and whispered to her, If I take off my mask, will you let me hug you? Bah, you're still so frivolous. Icy Snow spat. What did you say to Miss Zhao? I saw her face was frosty when she left just now. You were also here drinking to drown your sorrows. Did something happen to you too? I asked her to marry me, and then this happened. Song Qingshu shrugged and said helplessly, When Icy Snow suddenly heard such explosive news, her red lips gaped so wide that an egg could fit inside. What's going on? Even though Icy Snow had a cold temperament, she was a woman, after all, and gossiping was a woman's nature. Seeing the excitement on her face, Song Qingshu became more and more depressed. I proposed to her, and then she simply rejected me. Icy Snow was taken aback and asked doubtfully, But after spending some time with you, I feel that Miss Zhao likes you. Why did she reject me? I also felt that our relationship was at its last step, so I took the initiative to poke at it. At this point, Song Qingshu sighed deeply. Unfortunately, it turns out that I was overthinking. At this point, Song Qingshu couldn't help but feel a deep sense of melancholy. When he read The Heaven Sword and Dragon Saber in his previous life, Zhao Min was his favorite female lead. She was so perfect that she was like a beautiful dream that people could see from afar but couldn't pursue. When he transmigrated to this world and discovered that Zhao Min was also here, the distant dream gradually became within reach. That kind of joy was simply unparalleled. Unfortunately, the other party's cold rejection knocked him down from the clouds to the ground. At that moment, he seemed to hear the sound of his dream shattering. How was that possible? Icy Snow recalled the bits and pieces of time she spent with Zhao Min. Every time she mentioned Song Qingshu, the corners of her lips would curl up slightly. It was obvious that she had feelings for him. How did you propose to her? Tell me everything that happened just now. There's no need for that, right? Song Qingshu glanced at her. Sister-in-law, when did you learn to be bad? Are you trying to sprinkle salt on my wound? Icy Snow glared at him angrily. Do you think I'll harm you? It's just that I think there must be a misunderstanding and I don't want you to miss this fate. Song Qingshu hesitated for a moment before roughly recounting his conversation with Zhao Min. After listening to it, Icy Snow couldn't help but laugh. Even though her smile was as beautiful as the first melting of ice and snow, Song Qingshu still found it somewhat sarcastic. Sister-in-law, you're also bad. You even made me repeat it before making fun of me. Who's making fun of you? I just understand why Ms. Zhao rejected you. Icy Snow said snappily. Why? Song Qingshu sat up straight all of a sudden and looked at her in confusion. Icy Snow shook her head and explained softly. Qingshu, you understand a girl's mind better than most men in this world. But you're not a woman after all, so there are some things that you can't think of. If you simply proposed to Miss Zhao this time, I think she would most likely agree to it. But the focus of your conversation this time was on how to detoxify the poison. So how could Miss Zhao agree to it? Why can't she agree to it? Song Qingshu was still a little confused. You're usually so smart. Why are you so stupid this time? Icy Snow was a little anxious. Think about it. If Miss Zhao agrees to it, doesn't it mean that she agreed to marry you for the sake of her life? Song Qingshu frowned and said, I won't think so, but she will be so worried. Icy Snow sighed and explained to him, women are meticulous creatures, not to mention Miss Zhao. She will be worried about you. Even though she won't think so now, what about the future? Or what will your other female confidants think of her? She can't take this risk. After all, it's related to a woman's lifelong happiness. No woman likes her marriage to be mixed with other things. Song Qingshu blinked, vaguely understanding the meaning of Icy Snow's words. But he still had some concerns in his heart. But what if she didn't reject me because of this? What if she simply doesn't like me and doesn't want to marry me? Icy Snow rolled her eyes at him. A woman who follows a man all the time and never refutes the rumors about the two of them in the pugilistic world. If this isn't liking, then what is liking? Seeing that Song Qingshu was still hesitating, she walked over and pushed him toward the direction of Zhao Min's room. You're a man. You have to take the initiative. Hurry up and go. Okay. Thank you, sister-in-law. Song Qingshu was a little depressed because he was too worried about personal gains and losses. Now that he was enlightened by Icy Snow, he regained his spirits. Looking at the direction where he left, Icy Snow blushed and spat. She mumbled softly, How many times have I told you not to call me sister-in-law? Otherwise, it feels weird. Meanwhile, Song Qingshu jogged all the way to Zhao Min's room. He knocked on the door and said, Princess, I have something to tell you. After knocking for a long time, a cold reply came from inside. I'm sleeping. Let's talk tomorrow. Song Qingshu smiled immediately. I happen to be a little tired. Why don't we sleep together? Chapter 1574. The room suddenly fell into silence. After a long time, Zhao Min's angry voice came. Are you sick? Of course I'm sick. Song Qingshu laughed. I have a lovesickness disease. I hope Junju can help me solve it. Now you are the emperor with 3,000 beauties in the harem. You can find them to solve it yourself. Zhao Min's voice was still very cold. Song Qingshu deliberately sighed faintly. I'm not lovesickness for them. How can they solve it? Only Junju can solve this disease in this world. When Zhou Zhuo hears your words, her face must be very interesting. Zhao Min's sneer came from the room. After running into a wall again and again, Song Qingshu couldn't help but be a little annoyed. If you don't open the door, I will come in directly. You know that with my power, this door can't stop me. The response to him was still silence. Song Qingshu waited for a while and simply stretched out his hand. When he was about to open the door with his palm, the door opened from the inside. Zhao Min stood at the door. When she was about to say something, she suddenly looked down at the hand on her chest. It turned out that when Song Qingshu was about to push, she just happened to come out, causing his hand to directly press on Zhao Min's chest. Zhao Min exclaimed and hurriedly took a few steps back. She stared at the man in front of her with a red face. You lecher! Song Qingshu smiled embarrassedly. I'm sorry, it's purely a coincidence. Coincidence? Zhao Min sneered. Young Master Song's cultivation has reached the peak of perfection. Don't say that you can't control it at will. Don't say it when you see it. Song Qing-shu was not at all embarrassed. It's easy for a woman to be too smart to marry. Zhao Min rolled her eyes at him and directly turned to walk back to the room. It's none of your business. Anyway, I won't marry you. That's not necessarily true. Song Qing-shu was not discouraged by her indifference. After all, she did not close the door when she went in. Seeing that he had followed her in, Zhao Min was slightly startled. She frowned and said, "Tell me, why are you looking for me so late?" Song Qing-shu smiled. "Of course I'm here to ask you to marry me." Zhao Min's face darkened. She snorted coldly and said, "I've already made it clear to you, just now. I won't marry him." Song Qing-shu was not offended. He also sat down in front of her and quietly looked into her eyes until she could not stand his eyes and began to avoid his eyes. Then he said, "The method of the proposal just now was wrong, causing some misunderstandings. This time I came here specifically to make it clear to you that I want to marry you, not to force the poison out of you, but simply to marry you. No, it should be said that I have always wanted to marry you. Marrying you is my biggest dream." Zhao Min blushed at his words and turned her face away uncomfortably. However, when she heard the last part, she suddenly turned back curiously and looked at him with her big eyes blinking. "You have always wanted to marry me? Speaking of which, haven't you always wanted to marry Zhou Zhiruo?" Song Qing-shu was a little speechless. It turned out that Song Qing-shu liked Zhou Zhiruo the most. He could not explain to her that he was a person who had transmigrated from another world. Seeing that the other party's expression became more and more suspicious, Song Qing-shu had to answer. "From the first time I saw you, I had this idea. The first time you met me, you should have been in Wan'an Temple, right?" Zhao Min recalled for a while and finally could not help but spit. "Men are really lecherous. To think that I thought that you were deeply in love with Zhou Zhiruo and that you were an infatuated man." Song Qing-shu also got into character and said with a smile, "At that time, the princess was so high and dazzling. I was attracted by the princess's elegance at a glance. Unfortunately, the gap between us was too big. The princess probably did not pay much attention to me. I still have an impression of you. Who asked everyone to know that you liked Zhou Zhiruo at that time?" Thinking of her rival in love, Zhao Min could not help but think of Zhang Wuji, and her face immediately became gloomy. Seeing her expression, Song Qing-shu also guessed a thing or two. "You think of him?" Zhao Min nodded and did not hide. "Damn Mingzun. But Mingzun's appearance is really good for you. If not for him, I would not. I would not be so close to you. Speaking of which, I really should thank him." Song Qing-shu could not help but laugh. Suddenly, Zhao Min's expression became strange. "There are rumors in the pugilistic world that you like married women. At first, I did not believe it, but after seeing Icy Snow, Xia Qingqing, and Princess Go By of the Jin Kingdom, it seems that the rumors may not be false." As she spoke, her expression changed. "Don't tell me that you approached me to enjoy the conquering desire of snatching women from other men. Those rumors are definitely slander." Song Qing-shu was speechless. "I simply like them. It's just a coincidence that they're married. Don't I also like young girls like you?" Zhao Min suddenly became furious. "You really are a womanizer." Song Qing-shu sighed. "Genghis Khan, whom you Mongolians revere the most, and your father, which one of them does not have a group of wives and concubines? Compared to them, I'm already very pure. At least I treat each of my confidants sincerely." Zhao Min opened her mouth, but in the end, she did not refute. In fact, being born in the royal family, in this aspect, she was more open-minded than the average pugilistic world woman. However, being open-minded was one thing, and being unhappy was another. She could not help but sneer. "You proposed to me while showing off your love history. Do you think I will agree?" Song Qing-shu could not help but feel a little depressed. "You were the one who brought it up first. All right, let's not stray too far. Let's continue to discuss the original topic." Zhao Min sneered. "What is there to discuss? I'm not marrying you. We have kissed, hugged, and even slept in the same bed. If you don't marry me, who else will you marry?" Song Qing-shu was also annoyed. Zhao Min curled her lips, I was born in Mongolia, and I am not as particular as you Han women. Take the first queen of Genghis Khan, for example. She was kidnapped by the enemy. When Genghis Khan was able to rescue her, she had already given birth to the enemy's child. Genghis Khan did not blame her at all. This is the magnanimity of men on the grassland. What's the big deal about being kissed and hugged by you? Song Qingshu's face twitched, and he simply said in a deep voice, "Anyway, I don't care. As long as I am here, don't think about marrying anyone else in this life. At that time, I will kill whoever wants to marry you." Zhao Min fiercely glared at him. Just when Song Qingshu thought she was going to get angry, she suddenly smiled and said, "I've always thought that you're a bit wishy-washy. Only this can be considered as a real man." Song Qingshu was stunned, and soon he was surprised and happy. You agree?" Zhao Min rolled her eyes at him. "If I don't agree, you won't use force?" Song Qingshu looked very strange. "It turns out that your highness likes this kind of thing. I really didn't see it." Chapter 1575. Zhao Min was startled at first, but then she understood. She couldn't help but feel ashamed and angry at the same time. "That's not what I meant. I meant that if I don't agree, you will play some shameless tricks." Song Qingshu grinned as he looked at the princess, who usually had the pearl of wisdom in her hands, but now looked like an extremely bashful daughter from a noble family. He couldn't help but feel very happy. Seeing that he didn't say anything and just giggled at her, Zhao Min couldn't help but feel a bit scared. She put her hands on her hips and angrily said, "What are you laughing at? You look like a fool. If I can marry the princess, what's the harm in being a fool for once?" Song Qingshu said with a mischievous smile. "Who said I want to marry you?" Zhao Min snappily said. Song Qingshu directly grabbed her waist and held her in his arms. "Now you have two choices. First, agree to my proposal and happily marry me. Second, I will use force and you will happily marry me." Zhao Min twisted her body a few times. Unfortunately, the other party's hands were like iron pincers. She could only helplessly give up. "If you force me, will I happily marry you?" Song Qingshu moved closer to her neck and deeply inhaled the delicate fragrance on her body. He revealed an intoxicated expression. "I don't care. In any case, you can only be happy." Feeling the other party's breath on her skin, Zhao Min felt her whole soul tremble a few times. How can you be so overbearing?" Listening to her coquettish voice, Song Qingshu couldn't help but tightly hug her. He moved closer to her ear and softly said, "Princess, will you marry me?" The usually arrogant Zhao Min at this time almost buried her head in his chest. After a long time, she inaudibly responded, "Yes," although her voice was very soft, and if one didn't pay attention, Song Qingshu's cultivation base was so high that he couldn't help but be wild with joy when he received a response. He hugged her and began to spin around the room, laughing loudly as he spun. "Put me down." Zhao Min couldn't help turning pale. As she patted his chest, she quickly said, "If you take off your mask now, if the palace maids and eunuchs see it, it will be troublesome." Hearing this, Song Qingshu stopped, but he still hugged her, unwilling to let go. "Hey, didn't you say that you don't need to carry a sword with your current cultivation?" In his arms, Zhao Min's face was also red and her heart was beating rapidly. However, she suddenly felt a little dizzy, so she couldn't help but frown and ask, "I didn't bring my sword?" Song Qingshu was also at a loss. He didn't know why she would ask such a question. "Then what is that thing in your arms that is poking me?" Zhao Min subconsciously wanted to grab it, but suddenly her heart skipped a beat. She wasn't a naive little girl. She was just a little dizzy because she had agreed to his proposal. Now that she had calmed down a little, how could she not know what it was? "Little pervert." Zhao Min retracted her hand as if she had been electrocuted. She couldn't help but spit. Her pretty face seemed to be covered in rouge, so red that it was about to bleed. Song Qingshu smiled embarrassedly and said, Rue. It's a natural reaction, a natural reaction. You are poking me, proposing to me. Why do I feel that you are not sincere enough?" Zhao Min was a little flustered by his poking and hurriedly said, "Let go of me." At this point, How could Song Qingshu let go? He directly hugged her alluring body and kissed her white cheeks. This is a good way to show my sincerity. Look, whether it is my heart or my body, I like you so much. Zhao Min was so angry that she laughed. She turned around and glared at him. You're always so overbearing. Song Qingshu didn't say anything. Instead, he reached out to hook her chin and kissed her delicate red lips. Obviously, Zhao Min didn't expect his sudden attack. She instinctively wanted to push him away, but after several attempts, she found that it was useless. She had to put down her hand that was pounding on his chest. After a long time, Zhao Min lowered her head and whispered, "It's late. You should go back." Song Qingshu moved closer to her ear and said, "I won't leave tonight. You really are a little pervert. Your head is full of dirty thoughts." Zhao Min poked his chest with her finger and looked at him with a faint smile. Song Qingshu smiled and said, "I don't have any dirty thoughts. I just want to get up with you." At first, Zhao Min was stunned. Then she realized what he meant. She couldn't help but clench her fist and hit his chest. "You really are a bastard." Song Qingshu laughed out loud. With a wave of his hand, the door was closed by an invisible force. Then, he carried Zhao Min in his arms and walked toward the bedside. This time, Zhao Min finally panicked. "Hey, what do you want? I'm not ready yet. What are you thinking? I just want to sleep with you. I won't do anything else." Song Qingshu looked at her mischievously. Zhao Min didn't expect him to make a false accusation. She couldn't help but blush. "You have a glib tongue. I can tell that you're not a good match." Song Qingshu directly moved his mouth over. "Is my mouth oily? Try it again." "Scoundrel." Zhao Min laughed and scolded him. She couldn't help but let him hug her and roll her onto the bed. Song Qingshu hugged her tightly in his arms. He said with a salivating face, "Did I come looking for you today? How about I ask the palace maids to prepare hot water and we go take a bath now?" "Bah!" Zhao Min spat. "I can tell that you are up to no good. Who wants to take a bath with you? Besides, I have already washed up." "Is that so?" Song Qingshu moved closer to her collar and sniffed. "No wonder it smells so good." Zhao Min pushed him away and said with a straight face, "Didn't you say that you will only sleep and not do anything else?" Fine. I will only sleep and not do anything else." After saying that, Song Qingshu directly closed his eyes and began to snore in order to increase his persuasiveness. "Scoundrel!" Zhao Min scolded with a straight face, but soon she burst into laughter. Song Qingshu's snoring continued to echo in the room, but Zhao Min couldn't fall asleep. On the one hand, she had just agreed to the other party's proposal. Until now, she still hadn't recovered from the complicated emotions. On the other hand, being held in the other party's arms, the bed was full of the man's masculine scent, which inevitably made her heart beat faster. How could she fall asleep? Suddenly, she felt something strange on her chest. She looked down and couldn't help but be embarrassed and angry. "What are you doing with your hand?" "I'm worried that our child won't have milk to drink in the future, so I measured it in advance." Song Qingshu seriously began to talk nonsense. "Our child." Women were emotional creatures after all. They subconsciously thought of their future life. At the thought of children, Zhao Min couldn't help but smile slightly. However, she quickly realized that it was inappropriate. She angrily pinched the man behind her and said, "Have you touched enough?" "No." Song Qingshu shook his head. "It won't be enough, even if I touch it for a lifetime." If it was another man who said such nonsense in front of Zhao Min, she would definitely ask the Ruyang Mansion's experts to cut off their tongues. However, when it came from Song Qingshu's mouth, she found that she actually wasn't that angry. However, the other party's next action made her completely lose her composure. "You, stop rubbing. Don't worry. I'm just rubbing. I won't go in." Song Qingshu responded with a classic saying from his previous life. Chapter 1576. Zhao Min was annoyed by his words. She knew that she would not be able to escape his clutches tonight, but she was smart and thought of a way to divert his attention. "Qingshu, now that you're the emperor of Liao, how are you going to deal with King Xiaofeng of the South Courtyard, who is imprisoned by Yelu Hongji?" Song Qingshu was stunned. He did not expect that she would suddenly say this in such a charming situation. But it was a serious matter, so he did not dare to be careless. He replied seriously, "Of course I will let him go. He and I have become sworn brothers. I don't care about the past, but now I just need to say the word to let him go. How can I just stand by and do nothing? What's more, I still need him to help me keep the Prime Minister of the North in check. Now that Yelu Isin has fallen and the North King's College has declined, there is no opponent for Xiao Pity in the whole court. Power easily breeds people's desires. I am worried that without a check, he will become the second Yelu Isin," Song Qingshu said with some worry. Although Xiao Pity was Su Quan's father, in the power struggle, the relationship between father and son could be bloody, let alone the relationship between father and daughter. Zhao Min nodded. "Your worry is not unreasonable. Even if Xiao Pity has no disobedience, it is difficult to guarantee that his subordinates will force him to go further for glory and wealth, just like Zhao Kuangyin, the founder of the Southern Dynasty." But Zhao Min changed the topic. "Xiao Feng still can't be released." Song Qingshu frowned. "Why?" Zhao Min wiggled her body a little, distancing herself from Yelu Hongji's aggressive posture before explaining. "Xiao Feng is loyal to his country, and he is also Yelu Hongji's sworn brother. If he finds out the truth in the future, how do you think he will deal with it? And even if he doesn't know the truth in a short time, with his character, it is not in your interest to deal with the Jin Kingdom all day long." Now she already knew that Song Qingshu controlled the power of the Jin Kingdom, so Xiao Feng's opposition to the Jin Kingdom would have an irreconcilable conflict of interest with Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu nodded. "What you said makes some sense, but if we don't use Xiao Feng to keep Xiao Pity in check, who will do it?" Zhao Min blinked her eyes. "Have you forgotten about Yelu Qi, who was rescued earlier?" "Yelu Qi?" Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat as he fell into deep thought. Zhao Min smiled like a fox. Now that Yelu Isin has rebelled, it just proves that Yelu Qi and the others were wrongly accused. You can use this opportunity to pardon his crimes and rehabilitate him. Won't you be able to transfer him back? In addition, he is your brother-in-law. Whether it is loyalty or ability, there's a great guarantee. He is the most suitable person to keep Pity Xiao in check. Then why not call Yelu Chukai back? Yelu Chutsai's political ability should be far greater than Yelu Qi's. Song Qingshu thought of this famous and capable minister in history and couldn't help but feel excited, because he is too capable and has enough experience. Zhao Min shook her head. It will be difficult to control him then. On the contrary, Yelu Qi is honest and modest. Because he is young and lacks foundation, he can only rely on you. He is much more reliable than Yelu Chukai. Zhao Min smiled and added, "What's more, your Golden Snake camp needs a prime minister, who is more suitable than Yelu Chukai. Moreover, letting the father and son stay in two different places can be regarded as a different kind of hostage, so that they won't dare to have disloyalty." Song Qingshu listened with admiration. Commandery Princess is really resourceful. They are probably still counting the money for you after being sold by you. Zhao Min didn't care. Being born in the royal family, I have been influenced by the means of checks and balances. It is not really a skill. Commandery Princess is modest. Song Qingshu pulled her back into his arms. With such a wife, what more can a husband ask for? Wife. Zhao Min looked playful. Then are you planning to reduce Zhou to a concubine? Cough, cough. Song Qingshu almost choked on a mouthful of water. He decisively changed the topic. I have a candidate to check and balance Xiao Pity, but what about Xiao Feng? Will he be locked up like this? Zhao Min snorted, with an expression that said, "I knew you would say this. How to deal with Xiao Feng is indeed a difficult problem. Although I have some vague ideas, they still need to be carefully considered and perfected. When I think about it, I will tell you. For now, let him continue to be locked up in the heavenly prison. If you feel bad about it, treat him with good food and drink. It can be regarded as fulfilling your brotherhood." Song Qingshu forced a smile and said, "Sworn brotherhood? Why does it sound so ironic now?" Zhao Min wrinkled her nose. "If he wasn't your sworn brother, we wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. We could have just killed him with a single slash. It's because of your brotherhood that we're thinking of a way to satisfy both sides. Song Qing breathed a sigh of relief. After being enlightened by you, I feel a little better. Okay, it is late. I am sleepy. Let's sleep. Zhao Min yawned and directly turned to the side, leaving only a graceful view of her back to him. After a long time, Zhao Min blushed and gasped, "Stop it. I am really sleepy." "But you obviously can't sleep." Song Qing leaned close to her ear. "I heard that a man and a woman need to sleep together to sleep soundly. It is obvious that you have been playing with me. How can I sleep?" Zhao Min twisted her body, her tone angry. Song Qing did not care and gently kissed her cheek. "If you are really sleepy, you can even sleep in a busy city." "You are twisting words and forcing logic." Zhao Min was confused by the breath he exhaled, so she simply turned around and glared at him. Looking at her moist lips, Song Qing couldn't help but be tempted. He kissed her directly and stopped her from saying anything else. The girl's modesty made Zhao Min instinctively want to push him away, but unfortunately, the two of them were in the same bed, and he had touched her all over. Her body was already weak, and she did not have the strength to push him away. "Don't be like this." Zhao Min finally got a chance to breathe, but the words that came out of her mouth made her feel embarrassed. How could such a weak and powerless refusal stop the other party? Instead, it seemed like she was acting coquettishly. Sure enough, hearing her weak words, the pressure of the man next to her became stronger, making her whole heart confused and her mind blank. Song Qing looked at the beautiful face in front of him from such a close distance, and his voice was a little hoarse. "I want you. I want your first time. I want your second time. In the future, every time you do, it will belong to me." "You're crazy." Zhao Min turned her face away. Logically speaking, she should be very angry when she heard such rude words, but she didn't know why. But she couldn't feel any anger at this moment. All she felt was endless shyness. "Does Junju agree?" Song Qing pulled her face back and stared into her eyes with a burning gaze. "How do you want me to answer such a question?" At this time, Zhao Min's eyes were full of tears, as if covered with a layer of mist. "Then I will take it that you agree." Song Qing smiled and reached into her collar. Chapter 1577. Zhao Min stiffened, and her voice trembled. "You don't keep your word." Song Qing smiled. "I promised to only sleep with you and not do anything else, but what we're doing now is what men and women do when they sleep. You're really the devil in my life." Zhao Min rolled her eyes, and the char between her eyebrows almost hooked Song Qing soul. Seeing that she wasn't angry, Song Qing became bolder and directly reached into her clothes. He didn't touch the warm and fragrant jade that he had imagined, but another strange touch. Zhao Min was a little embarrassed and whispered, "Because it's inconvenient to shake on weekdays, I tied it with a corset." Song Qing was surprised. He thought that she looked full enough on weekdays, but it was still the effect of tying a corset. However, Zhao Min didn't let him be curious for too long. She sat up directly, reached behind her, and untied the bow behind the corset. Even though Song Qing was mentally prepared, he was still shocked by the magnificent scene in front of him and drew in a breath of cold air. Seeing the man's shocked look, Zhao Min couldn't help feeling a little proud. How is it? Is it bigger than Zhou Jiruo? She wasn't the kind of person who was bashful. Now that she had decided to be with this man, after the initial shyness, she had gradually recovered her usual active and enthusiastic temperament. Naturally, she wanted to show her most beautiful side to him. Why do you have to compete with her for everything? Song Qing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "It's none of your business. Tell me quickly." Zhao Min's eyes were wide open, and her eyes were full of expectation and excitement. "I'm a little older than her." Song Qing had no choice but to tell the truth. Only a little older? Zhao Min was obviously not satisfied with this answer. She pouted, and the princess, who was always wise, was like a little girl throwing a tantrum at this time. "It's a lot bigger, okay?" Song Qing secretly thought to himself, growing up eating beef and drinking goat's milk is indeed nutritious far more than the women of Jiangnan. In the future, my children will also drink milk and eat meat from a young age, so that their bodies will be nutritious. Bah, bah, bah. However, he immediately realized that it would only benefit some little bastard when he grew up. For a moment, he couldn't help but feel conflicted. That's more like it. Hearing this answer, Zhao Min was instantly overjoyed, and her eyes curved into crescent moons. Seeing that she was so happy over such a small matter, Song Qingshu couldn't help but sigh. No wonder there were many people in the future who made Zhao Min and Zhou Zhuruo into a couple. All kinds of Yuri novels were popular. These two were indeed fighting with each other and seemed to have developed feelings for each other. But did he really have a chance to get them together? The scene of Zhao Min and Zhou Zhuruo together on the same bed appeared in his mind, and Song Qingshu felt his whole body heat up. What dirty ideas are you thinking about in your head again? Zhao Min spat and secretly glanced down, only to feel that her face was getting hotter. My head is full of you. Are you that dirty? Song Qingshu dispelled the idea. After all, Zhao Min and Zhou Zhuruo were like fire and water, and to make them together was practically impossible. Annoying, Zhao Min's slightly angry tone made all the bones in Song Qingshu's body go limp. Seeing that he was staring at her blankly, Zhao Min couldn't help but laugh. Idiot! Are you going to look like this for the whole night? Do you want to come up? Of course I want to come up. Being invited by a beauty, how could Song Qingshu hold back? He turned over and directly pressed on top of her. Suddenly, a warm and fragrant body was in his arms, and there was only one thought in his mind, so soft. Zhao Min's personality was lively and active, but in the face of the man's hot and masculine oppression, she finally became shy. She blushed and quietly looked at the man on top of her, as if he could hear her own heartbeat. I want to familiarize myself with every part of your skin, every inch of your meridians. Song Qingshu's voice was a little dry, but before he could finish, Zhao Min's finger pressed on his lips. Don't talk about healing tonight. Zhao Min's cheeks were red, and her voice was much more charming than usual, and she subconsciously twisted her legs. Okay. Knowing that she had a knot in her heart, Song Qingshu naturally wouldn't spoil the mood. He gently pulled her belt, and Zhao Min's whole body was like a peeled egg, shining with a layer of charming light under the candlelight. Due to her previous bath, there was still a faint mist on her skin, along with the fragrance of rose petals. Song Qingshu exclaimed, "Sometimes, I'm really amazed at how magical the creator is to be able to create such a perfect work of art. Unfortunately, I don't know how to draw, or else I would definitely copy this beautiful scene and keep it well." No way. Zhao Min was shocked. What if someone else sees it? Although she was bold and passionate, but compared to the people of this world, she was far less open than the men and women of the future. That's really possible. Thinking about how YZM ruined a few popular celebrities in the future, Song Qingshu didn't want others to appreciate Zhao Min's current posture. Is it really beautiful? Seeing that he was in a daze again, Zhao Min couldn't help but smile foolishly. Unfortunately, I'm not Chao Zijian, or else I would also make you a princess ode, or something like that. Song Qingshu was deeply annoyed at his low level of literary attainment. I don't need a princess ode. You just need to tell me, compared to Zhou Zhuruo, who's prettier? Zhao Min's eyebrows were full of charm. Song Qingshu instantly had a headache. He didn't expect that, even at this moment, she still didn't forget to compete with Zhou Zhuruo. You're charming and plump. She's cold and slender. Plum, orchid, bamboo, and chrysanthemum each have their own advantages. You're using this to fool me again. Zhao Min curled her lips, obviously not satisfied with his answer. His gaze fell on her fair and alluring body, and Song Qingshu suddenly wanted to slap himself. Why did he stupidly flaunt his sharp tongue here on such a beautiful day? Instead, he forgot about the more important matter. Therefore, he didn't pay attention to her probing questions and directly reached out to hold her shoulders, only to feel her soft and smooth skin. Zhao Min's heart skipped a beat and subconsciously reached out to push him away. She said in a panic, "You haven't answered my question yet." Glancing at her snow-white waist, especially the skin rubbing against each other, Song Qingshu felt that the true qi in his meridians was about to boil. He suddenly pressed her hands down and said in a hoarse voice, "If you want to compare who's better between the two of you, we'll only know after we've both tried." Zhao Min coquettishly rolled her eyes at him. "How do you want to try?" Song Qingshu reached down and smiled wickedly. "Like this," Zhao Min exclaimed. After all, she was a young girl who had not experienced the world of love. At first, she might have wanted to win and wanted to take the initiative, but how could she be a match for Song Qingshu? Soon, her whole body was limp and sore, and she could only open her eyes wide and subconsciously shrink back. Chapter 1578. Zhao Min did not know that this kind of weak and frightened appearance was the most alluring. It provoked Song Qingshu to the point where he was about to explode. His entire body was like a ferocious tiger as he pounced on her with red eyes. "You're hurting me." At this moment, Zhao Min did not have the slightest bit of her usual high-spirited demeanor. She was as delicate and timid as a young lady from a wealthy family who had never stepped out of the gates of Jiangnan. Seeing her tightly furrowed brows, Song Qingshu lowered his head and said somewhat hoarsely, "Don't worry, it won't hurt that much. It'll be over soon." Zhao Min bit her red lips and stared at him hatefully. "Our young master Song is a playboy. Of course you're experienced in this area." Song Qingshu smiled embarrassedly. He knew that this was the most important moment of a young girl's life, so it was inevitable that she would be more sensitive than usual. It was best not to explain anything at this time, lest it made things worse. Seeing his embarrassed appearance, Zhao Min became angrier the more she thought about it. She raised her head and ruthlessly bit his shoulder. "Ah!" Song Qingshu felt pain and subconsciously sank. "Ah!" This time, it was Zhao Min's turn to cry out in surprise. Tears came out of her eyes as she patted the chest of the man on top of her and cried, "You bastard! You lied to me. You said it didn't hurt. It'll be over soon." At this moment, Song Qingshu's eyes were full of smiles. Looking at the beautiful woman in tears, his chest was filled with great happiness and a sense of conquest. When he had first transmigrated to this world, he had been attracted by Princess Zhao Min's incomparably tender beauty. However, at that time, he was in a precarious situation and had no time to think about other things. At that time, Zhao Min was high and mighty. How could she care about him when he was in the mud? The reason why she remembered him was probably because of Zhou Zhiruo, but he did not expect that in just a few years, he would make her willingly lie down on him and completely possess her. "What are you laughing at? You're definitely up to no good right now." Zhao Min was already in pain. When she saw the man's expression, she was so angry that she pinched his waist. I'm thinking about the scene at the lion slaying convention. Back then, the princess was radiant and glorious, but I had all my meridians broken, and I was despised by the world. I'm afraid the princess didn't even look me in the eye. Song Qingshu didn't hide it from her and told her what he was thinking. Zhao Min was smart and instantly guessed his mood at the moment. She couldn't help but glare at him hatefully. "Back then, I found out that you looked at me with evil intentions. Now that you finally got what you wanted, aren't you very proud?" Thinking back to the situation in the past, Zhao Min could still vaguely remember the uncomfortable feeling when she was stared at by his burning gaze. She didn't expect that in just a few years, she would be lying on the same bed with him. "Of course I am." Song Qingshu didn't hide the joy in his heart at all. He almost danced with joy. However, he was immediately held back by Zhao Min. "Don't move. It hurts. Relax. You'll get used to it soon." Seeing her holding back her tears, Song Qingshu felt pity and hurriedly comforted her gently. "It's easy for you to say." Zhao Min bit her red lips and suddenly frowned. Did Zhou Zhiruo have such a big reaction back then? Song Qingshu couldn't help but be speechless. This Zhao Min wanted to compete with Zhou Zhiruo in everything. The two of them were really born enemies. Her reaction back then was much bigger than yours. He thought back to the time when he had taken Zhou Zhiruo because of a misunderstanding. Her cold, murderous gaze was still fresh in his memory. You're not allowed to think about her at this time. Noticing the change in Song Qingshu's expression, Zhao Min was a little dissatisfied. Song Qingshu was stunned. Didn't you mention her first? Zhao Min snorted. I mentioned her, but you're not allowed to think about her, especially at this time. Seeing her righteous look, Song Qingshu couldn't help but be speechless. However, he quickly came to his senses. Women were all mouths. How could he win against her in an argument? Seeing her proud look, Song Qingshu decided to use another method to get back at her. He chuckled and pressed his whole body on her again. Go away. Aya. Get out. The red candles in the room flickered and turned red. Zhao Min's bright and alluring mouth opened slightly, but she couldn't make a sound. After an unknown amount of time, Song Qingshu's voice came from under the blanket. I'm familiarizing myself with the meridians in your body. Next, I'll help you get rid of the 3 corpses brain god pill in your brain. I don't want to, Zhao Min replied lazily as she tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. Because her skin was covered in a layer of fine sweat, a lot of her hair stuck to her face. She had to pull her hair back a few times before she could push her hair back. Don't think about those things that spoil the mood today. Is that so? Song Qingshu pondered for a moment. He really needed to familiarize himself with Zhao Min's body before he could be more confident. Today was indeed not a good time to get rid of the poison. Since that's the case, why don't we do it again? How many times did you and Zhou Zhuhua do it? Zhao Min stared at him with a pair of charming big eyes. There was a glimmer in her eyes, which was different from usual. Song Qingshu stretched out a few fingers in front of her. Zhao Min's delicate red lips suddenly opened so wide that an egg could be stuffed in it. How is that possible? Is she made of iron? At this time, her whole body was limp, and she didn't even want to move a finger. How could she not be surprised when she heard that Zhou Zhuo actually persisted so many times? Song Qingshu's face turned red. It was not convenient for him to explain the reason. Back then, he was seriously injured and his body was extremely weak. How could he compare to the vigor of a dragon and a tiger now? Especially after practicing the blissful Zen, his Yuan Qi was even more consolidated. If he wanted to, he could even lock himself up for a whole night. Although there were many times that night, it might not be as many as one time today. However, how could he tell this to Zhao Min? Are you lying to me? Zhao Min looked suspicious. After all, in her opinion, she grew up in Mongolia. No matter what, her physique should be better than Zhou Zhuhua, who was a girl from Jiangnan. However, she immediately thought that Zhou Zhuhua seemed to practice the Nining Sutra and her internal energy was much higher than hers. Maybe this was the reason why the two of them were different. However, she had always been unwilling to admit defeat. She bit her lips and looked at Song Qingshu. Again, firstly, she didn't believe that she would lose to Zhou Zhuhua. Secondly, after experiencing the pain at the beginning, she was somewhat looking forward to the rising to the sky like water and milk. Since the beauty invited him, Song Qingshu wouldn't be polite. Gradually, the room was filled with a heart-stirring, celestial music. Suddenly, Song Qingshu's eyes narrowed. He suddenly looked out of the window. Then, the window shattered inch by inch, and a black shadow rushed in. A snow-white sword light instantly suppressed the candlelight in the room. At the same time, it was accompanied by a delicate shout. Die, fatuous ruler! Chapter 1579. The red candles and palace lanterns in the room were already bright enough, but at this moment, they were overshadowed by the sword gleam. The bright sword gleam filled the entire room, as if a bright moon had risen in the room. Previously, when Murong Jingyue's divine blade slash, a full moon's gleam would also appear. However, that full moon was demonic, cold, and filled with the aura of death and destruction. This bright moon was much more gentle and beautiful, white and tranquil. However, in the eyes of an expert like Song Qingshu, he clearly knew that although this bright moon looked beautiful, every inch of its light represented a trace of killing intent. If one's cultivation was not high enough, It was very likely that they would be pierced by thousands of swords before they could even react. After all, moonlight was the same as sunlight. It shone on everything and was everywhere. At this moment, Zhao Min also reacted, but all she could see was the vast expanse of white moonlight. She could not see anything clearly at all. Even if she wanted to fight back normally, she would not be able to do so, not to mention now that her vital points were under attack and her entire body was limp. Fortunately, she had Song Qing by her side. Even though he was ambushed in his most relaxed state, with his cultivation, he naturally wouldn't be stumped by the sword light that filled the sky. In the nick of time, he raised his hand and caught the opponent's sword. The moonlight that filled the sky also gradually dissipated, revealing the assassin's full appearance. Although the assassin was dressed in black, it still could not hide her tall and slender figure. Her face was covered, but those bright and starry eyes that were like gems still showed that she was definitely a one-in-a-million beauty. Zhao Min suddenly felt a surge of sourness in her heart. She forcefully pinched the man on top of her. Which girl that you have slept with and then abandoned has turned into hatred because of love? Actually, as someone who was born in the royal family, she was not easily jealous, but today was a special day. No matter which woman encountered such a thing, they would feel depressed. Being suddenly pinched by her, Song Qingshu shivered all over and almost lost his grip on the opponent's sword. He hurriedly explained, "It's not what you think. She is not looking for me." Before he could finish speaking, he heard the woman's surprised and uncertain voice. "Song Qingshu, isn't she looking for you?" Zhao Min laughed coldly as she pulled the blanket over her body. Song Qingshu also felt a burning pain on his face. Turning to look at the assassin, he loosened his grip on the sword and smiled bitterly. Nancian, in fact, had already recognized the assassin from the start, so he only clamped the opponent's sword but did not retaliate. After all, Yilu Nanshan's Sun Moon Divine Sword was so unique, he was the one who gave it its name. However, he had no intention of lying to Zhao Min. After all, from Yilu Nanshan's words just now, she was most likely here for Yilu Hongji to avenge her father's death, not him. "Why are you here?" Yilu Nancian was a little confused by the situation in front of her. At this point, there was no need for her to cover her face. As she sheathed her sword, she also took off the black veil covering her face, revealing her beautiful face. However, her brows were a little more haggard than before. In this period of time, first her brother died, then her father, who was at the peak of his power, suddenly died, and her entire family was branded with the crime of treason. As strong as she was, facing one bad news after another, she could not hold on. Song Qingshu was at a loss for words, not knowing how to explain himself. "Where's Yilu Hongji?" Yilu Nancian finally remembered why she came here. Looking around. He's not here," Song Qingshu said awkwardly. "Not here." Yilu Nancian's face was full of doubt. This time, they came to the palace with the determination to die. In order to avenge her father, she had made ample preparations. After all, her father had once held great power in the court, and she had been a princess for a long time, so she always had channels to gather useful information. Today, she received accurate information that the emperor was staying the night in this palace. That's why she rushed here. But in the end, he wasn't here. She couldn't believe that the information she worked so hard to obtain was wrong. Instinctively, she began to look around. Suddenly, her eyes narrowed because she saw the dragon robe scattered on the ground. The dragon robe is here. That means Yilu Hongji must be nearby. Yilu Nancian hurriedly looked around. She did not suspect Song Qingshu. After all, impersonating the emperor in disguise was beyond the imagination of this world's people. Song Qingshu shrugged helplessly at Zhao Min, but Zhao Min turned her head away. It was obvious that she had been provoked by the sudden fright, and her heart was filled with resentment towards him. "Why can't I find him? Where's the dog emperor?" Yilu Nancian muttered to herself as she rummaged through the room, her mind in a daze. After all, she had given up everything for this attack. Now that it was about to fail, how could she not be anxious? Song Qingshu opened his mouth, not knowing what to say to her. Yilu Nancian suddenly reacted, turning her head to stare at him. "Big brother Song, why are you in the Emperor's palace? Did you hide the dog, Emperor?" Before Song Qing-shu could say anything, Zhao Min, who was at the side, took pleasure in Song Qing-shu's misfortune and spoke first. "Silly girl, don't you know that the dog Emperor you're looking for is right in front of you?" Seeing her look as if she wanted the world to be in chaos, Song Qing-shu was depressed, knowing that she was frightened at the critical moment and was venting her anger on him. Princess Xiaomin. Yilu Nanxian had seen the situation in the room earlier, but because she saw Song Qing-shu, she instinctively avoided looking at the woman under the blanket. Only now did she recognize her. The two women were both princesses and often traveled the Central Plains. Naturally, they had seen each other before. Yilu Nanxian looked at Zhao Min, then looked at Song Qing-shu. Her tone was a little strange as she said, "The two of you actually came to the Emperor's palace to steal." Cough, cough, I don't know if I should praise the two of you for your good mood, or admire the two of you for your audacity. Noticing the other's eyes on her, Zhao Min couldn't help but blush. Feeling a little guilty, she pulled the blanket up to cover her exposed shoulder. "What are you looking at me for? Aren't you looking for the dog Emperor? Here, that's him." Him? Noticing that Zhao Min pursed her lips at Song Qing-shu, Yilu Nanxian was surprised at first, but she was an intelligent person. Thinking about the information she received and the yellow robe scattered on the floor, she finally understood what Zhao Min meant when she said far in the horizon, "Right in front of you." "You are Yilu Hongji?" Yilu Nanxian raised the sword in her hand again, pointing it at Song Qing-shu, her voice trembling. At this moment, her mind was a blank, unable to function normally. Now that things had come to this, there was no need for Song Qing-shu to hide it anymore, not to mention that he had been sending people to look for Yilu Nanxian recently. Of course not before, but now Yilu Hongji is indeed me. "Then you were the one who killed my father?" Yilu Nanxian's voice suddenly became low, as if she was talking to herself in her sleep. "This time when I entered the palace to assassinate you, I thought I would definitely die. So before I left, I wanted to see you one last time. Unfortunately, when I went to your previous residence, I couldn't find you. I even waited for you there for 3 days, but you still didn't come back. I knew I couldn't wait any longer. So tonight, I entered the palace to assassinate you, but I didn't expect things to turn out like this. I must avenge my father." Her voice was suddenly filled with determination as she suddenly thrust her sword towards Song Qing-shu. Chapter 1580. When Song Qing-shu heard the change in her tone, he knew something was wrong. Not to mention, after watching so many TV dramas in his past life, he was naturally on guard against melodramatic plots. He reached out and caught her sword again, not letting himself be injured by her. "Little sister Nanxian, you've misunderstood." Song Qing-shu was worried that she would take things too hard, quickly explaining, "I didn't kill your father." Yilu Nanxian also woke up from her trance, realizing there was something fishy going on. "Fine, I'll listen to your explanation. Can you put down your sword first? It hasn't even been 10 minutes, and you've already stabbed me twice." Song Qing-shu's gaze fell on the sword, asking helplessly. Yilu Nanxian blushed, awkwardly letting go of the sword. Song Qing-shu put the sword to the side, explaining, "The one who died wasn't your father. It was someone called Murong Jingwe." Murong Jingwe? Yilu Nanxian was confused. She had never heard of this name before, looking at him in confusion. Song Qing-shu briefly explained the relationship between Murong Jingwe and himself, as well as Zhao Min and Icy Snow, then continued. That day, he was kidnapped by Shui Yi's people. In the end, he led them to a secluded courtyard, where he suddenly attacked and injured Shui Yi's people. In his complacency, he spilled the beans. That's how we discovered his identity. If you don't believe me, you could take a look at his body. I had people preserve it. This is a bit unbelievable. Yilu Nanxian took a few steps back, muttering to herself. In this world, is there really someone who can impersonate another person, and not even his family can tell? Song Qing-shu knew it was hard for her to believe, but he was prepared. Although it sounds like a fantasy, there really is such a disguise technique in this world. If you don't believe me, take a look. Yilu Nanxian raised her head and was shocked to see Yelu Hongji in front of her, jumping in fright. Fatuous ruler! Instinctively, she wanted to look for her sword. Song Qing-shu was so frightened that he hurriedly explained, "Sister Nancian, calm down, it's me." Hearing the familiar voice, Yelu Nancian was bewildered. Big brother Song? At this time, Xiaomin also kicked Song Qing-shu and said with disgust, "Take off this ghost mask. Otherwise, it's really weird to be in the same bed with you like this." Song Qing-shu laughed bitterly and hurriedly took off his mask, revealing his original appearance. There's really such a miraculous disguise technique in this world. Yelu Nancian was amazed, taking the mask from his hand and studying it. Then where did the real Yelu Hongji go? Of course he's dead. Song Qing-shu paused, then added, Murong Jingyue's ambition is very big. These years he has gathered a large group of people with wild ambitions. They cut off the emperor's wings one by one. For example, the imperial palace governor Yelu Qi, the southern courtyard king Xiao Feng, the northern manor prime minister Xiao Pidi, and so on. When the emperor is truly alone, it's naturally his chance to usurp the throne, but he didn't expect me to snatch it away. Dead. Yelu Nancian stood there absent-mindedly. Today's events were too much for her to digest. You can think about it carefully. In these 2 years, has your father changed from before? Song Qing-shu began to guide her to accept this fact. Yelu Nancian immediately fell silent. These 2 years, of course, she had noticed the changes in her father, but she only thought it was the rise in power that had affected his temperament. Now that she knew about the disguise and carefully thought about what had happened, there were indeed many suspicious points. Do you still remember that time in Yangzhou? He used you as a shield in order to escape? Song Qing-shu continued to remind her. That time, it could be said that he had indirectly set the other party up with him, and that night of intimate contact. Yelu Nancian was obviously thinking the same thing as him. Their eyes accidentally met, and she hurriedly looked away, but then she quickly remembered that she had been used as a shield by her father, and her expression immediately darkened. From that time on, although nothing had happened between father and daughter on the surface, unknowingly, a deep estrangement had grown between them. I'm afraid it was after that you were betrothed to the Western Xia Crown Prince, right? At this time, Xiaomin also spoke. No matter how good Murong Jingyue's disguise is, it is still a fake. It is difficult to deceive the people closest to him. In addition, what happened in Yangzhou made you suspicious, so he hurriedly betrothed you to another country. There's also the case of your brother's murder, Song Qing-shu added. I've recently looked through the files. In addition to the confessions of some of Murong Jingyue's subordinates, I'm afraid the person who killed him was Murong Jingyue. On one hand, he could get rid of those close to your father, and on the other hand, he could frame Yelu Qi and Xiaoban saying that they were killed because they heard the two of them plotting a rebellion. Yelu Nancian's face became incomparably pale. In fact, she had been investigating the case of her brother's murder and had found many things, but she had never thought in that direction. Now that she suddenly found out the truth, she couldn't help but feel as if her heart was being cut by a knife. Then what about my real father? Yelu Nancian suddenly thought of a crucial question. She raised her head, her eyes full of hope. Song Qing-shu couldn't bear it. He knew that she was hoping for a miracle. But Murong Jingyue had disguised himself as Yelu Isin and cut off his face to use as a mask. So naturally he wouldn't be able to live. Your father has already passed away. Song Qing-shu didn't tell her about the human skin mask. That would be too cruel. Father, she had already prepared herself. But this result still made Yelu Nancian heartbroken. Now that her brother was dead, her father was also dead, and her family was on the verge of destruction at any time, she felt that there was nothing more sorrowful than a broken heart. My condolences, Nancian. Song Qing-shu also knew that it was useless to say anything at this time, but it was better to comfort her than not. On the side, Zhao Min said in a strange tone, Miss Yelu, don't be too sad, at least there's still Song Qing-shu to accompany you. As soon as these words came out, Yelu Nancian was pulled out from her heartbroken state. She glared fiercely at Zhao Min. I didn't think that the normally arrogant Princess Xiao Min would be stealing someone else's man in the palace. Xiao Min was also depressed. This matter was a knot in her heart, especially when she thought about when she met Zhou Zhuo in the future. She was afraid that she would be mocked and ridiculed. Although she felt a bit guilty, she was never one to admit defeat. She retorted, "Why do you care about me? I'm not stealing your man." Yellow Nancian was also irritated because of the series of grievous news. Being provoked by Zhao Min like this, she couldn't help but blurt out, "Who said he's not my man? Qing Shu, Yang Zhou, didn't we already promise to marry each other?" This. Song Qing Shu also felt a headache. Even though the beauty had left early the next morning, he still had to take responsibility for what he had done, so he could only answer guiltily, "I will take responsibility for you." Yellow Nancian looked at Zhao Min provocatively. "Did you hear that? I'm the first to enter. Call me Big Sister." Zhao Min, Song Qing Shu. Chapter 1581. Call me Big Sister? Zhao Min's anger turned into laughter. Even in front of Zhou Zhuo, this so-called first wife, she had no intention of bowing down to anyone, not to mention this little girl in front of her. Who would have thought that Yellow Nancian would also nod with a straight face? The first to enter the door is the eldest. "I came before you. Shouldn't you call me Big Sister?" Zhao Min was at a loss for words. She could only glare fiercely at Song Qing Shu, the instigator of all this. "It's all your fault." Song Qing Shu was also helpless. Yellow Nancian had left after that night, leaving in such a carefree and unrestrained manner, with no intention of entering the Song family. Who would have guessed that she would be here fighting with Zhao Min for a man's affection? This really didn't fit with her character of being as calm as an immortal. He guessed that she must have suffered a little too much recently. That's why she exploded at this critical juncture. Yellow Nancian took a deep breath, gradually regaining her composure. Obviously, provoking Zhao Min made her feel a little better, but she didn't have the mood to continue bickering, directly speaking to Song Qing Shu. "Song Dage, since all of this is Murong Jingyue's plot, my father was wrongly accused, then I hope Song Dage can clear my father's name. After all, he's carrying the crime of treason. The entire family is on the verge of collapse. If my father's spirit is in heaven, I'm afraid he won't be able to rest in peace." Song Qing Shu opened his mouth, about to agree, but Zhao Min quietly pulled on his arm, rushing to speak first. "It's not impossible to clear your father's name, but you have to agree to one condition." Yellow Nancian frowned. "I'm begging Song Dage. What does that have to do with you?" "Song Dage, what condition do you need?" Before Song Qing Shu had time to answer, Zhao Min hastily said, "With Qing Shu's tender-hearted nature, he naturally can't bear to make things difficult for you, but it's not good for him to speak up. As his women, we naturally have to help him solve his problems. I don't think Miss Yalu is the kind of person who uses her beauty to take advantage of men, so I'm sure you can understand the reasoning behind this." Being outsmarted by her, Yellow Nancian didn't know what to say. She could only snort coldly. "What conditions?" Song Qing Shu smiled bitterly. "Actually, there's no need." Before he could finish, the two women turned around and glared at him in unison. Yellow Nancian said lightly, "There's no harm in listening to her conditions." Zhao Min revealed a sly smile, then said, "The crime of treason in every dynasty is very serious. And this time Wei Wang's case involves so many people. All the high-ranking officials in the court have been swept away. Many of the officials who were persecuted by Wei Wang have finally made a comeback and are planning to take revenge. If you suddenly say that Yelu Yisin is an imposter and push all the blame onto someone they've never heard of, do you think they'll believe it? The evidence is clear. Why wouldn't they believe it?" Yelu Nancian said this with a guilty conscience. She had lived in Shangjing for so many years, she naturally knew the rules. She was afraid that some people would not let go of the chance to hit her when she's down, especially those political enemies who had never been on good terms with her father. Yes, Qing Shu has become the emperor now, but with such a high position, he will be restricted by all sides. He must follow the rules of the game, and those who break the rules will often be punished by the rules. Not to mention that Qing Shu has just replaced Yelu Hongji's position. He's already in a precarious situation. If he tries to stand up for your father for you, he'll put himself in grave danger. Zhao Min analyzed. Yelu Nancian frowned as she listened. What conditions do you want me to agree to? Very simple. Zhao Min smiled slightly. Right now, Qing Shu needs a reason that the entire country can't object to in order to protect the lives of your people. And you are that reason. Me? Yelu Nancian was puzzled, but her expression quickly changed. During this time, she also knew what had happened in the capital. The reason why her people were only imprisoned and not punished was because the imperial court considered her to be the crown princess of the Western Xia. Now that Zhao Min mentioned this, it was clear that she wanted her to continue to fulfill the duty of the marriage alliance. Noticing the change in Yelu Nancian's expression, Zhao Min's lips curved up slightly. Miss Yelu is indeed a smart person. You've already understood what the conditions are? Yelu Nancian fell into silence, but Song Qing Shu was the first to answer. No, I won't agree to this condition. Zhao Min looked at him with a smile that was not a smile. You can't bear to part with it? Song Qing Shu's breath caught in his throat. He snorted, Of course I can't bear to part with it. Hearing his words, Yelu Nancian couldn't help but raise her head to look at him. Her previously cold face slightly blushed. Don't tell me you're going to let your love affair affect your official business? Zhao Min sneered. Before, in order to protect her people, we could only use the excuse of the marriage alliance to shut the mouths of the officials. Now, as long as she shows up, the marriage alliance with the Western Xia is inevitable, unless she lives in the darkness for the rest of her life. But when that time comes, can you withstand the pressure of the officials? If I can't, I'll just run away. I don't care about a mere emperor of the Liao. Song Qing Shu snorted coldly, letting his woman marry another man. He couldn't tolerate this kind of thing. Even Wu Sangue could fly into a rage for the sake of his woman. Could it be that he couldn't compare to Wu Sangue? I know what you're worried about. Zhao Min's face always had such a wise expression. Don't worry, I won't really let your little lover serve another man. It's just a marriage alliance in name. Song Qing Shu snappily said, The Western Xia has always been a country of tigers and wolves, and the members of the royal family are notorious for being lascivious. Nancian is so beautiful. Which man would be satisfied with a marriage alliance in name only? Hearing Song Qing Shu defend her in every way, Yelu Nancian's cold heart finally felt a trace of warmth. Of course, it's not possible to let her marry alone, but what if you become the Grand General? Zhao Min looked at the two of them with an amused expression. Send her to the Grand General? With Song Qing Shu and Yelu Nancian's intelligence, they naturally didn't think that Zhao Min was deliberately humiliating them. Instead, they began to ponder the deeper meaning behind her actions. Zhao Min obviously didn't plan to keep them in suspense. She directly said, With you personally escorting her, with your martial skills and intelligence, you will naturally have a way to protect her from being violated. At the same time, this is also an opportunity to control the Western Xia. Of course, as to how to do it, it will take time to plan, but with your ability to maneuver the other countries, it shouldn't be a difficult task. With Yelu Nancian present, she didn't mention the matter of Ming Qing and Jean, but her meaning was very clear. No, this is too risky and it will damage Nancian's reputation. Song Qing Shu thought for a while, even though he thought of the story of Xiang Xiaolong sending the Zhao princess to Wei for a marriage alliance and finally successfully bringing her back. But life is not a novel after all. In the end, he shook his head and refused. Zhao Min knew that it would be difficult for him to agree, so she simply ignored him and looked at Yelu Nancian. Miss Yelu, a marriage alliance with the Western Xia is the best chance to clear your father's name. After all, the Western Xia will not accept the daughter of a traitor as the crown princess. This way, in order to give you the right to marry, Song Qing Shu can use this opportunity to clear your father's name. Even if there are officials in the court who don't believe it, but in the interests of the country, no one will oppose it. Song Qing Shu's brows wrinkled. Min. At this time, Yelu Nancian suddenly said, Fine, I agree. He woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning to catch a flight to Beijing to attend the annual meeting of Zhongeng. Seeing such a large group of gods, he felt a heavy pressure. Tomorrow night is the official meeting. At that time, he will find a few idols to take pictures with. He couldn't help but think of the scenes of reading their novels in university. Chapter 1582. Nancian, don't let your emotions affect your decisions. Song Qing-shu hurriedly tried to stop her. But Yalu Nancian shook her head. I'm not letting my emotions affect my decisions. It's just that with the current situation in Shangjing, it won't be easy to clear my father's name. Princess Xiao Min has indeed given me the most likely solution. Song Qing-shu frowned. But if you go to Western Xia, Yalu Nancian blinked her eyes. Don't I still have you to protect me? I trust you. Zhao Min wiped her arm, a disgusted expression on her face. Song Qing-shu ignored her exaggerated reaction, hesitantly saying, as the saying goes, standing by the river, one's shoes won't get wet. I'm not omnipotent. If I fail to protect you, won't I regret it for the rest of my life? Yalu Nancian smiled faintly. I'm not some weak girl who doesn't even have the strength to truss up a chicken. I can still protect myself. Song Qing-shu still wanted to say something, but Zhao Min pushed him with dissatisfaction. Aren't you annoying? Both of us are more straightforward than you are. This matter is settled. She rolled her eyes. Miss Yalu, why don't you stay here and rest with us tonight? Yalu Nancian's face instantly turned bright red. Although she had been turned into a woman by Song Qing-shu that night, it was just a misunderstanding. She still had the mentality of a young girl. How could she stand Zhao Min's blatant words? Hey, who would be as shameless as you? Looking at her exposed, snow-white shoulders, Yalu Nancian couldn't help but feel an inexplicable sense of irritation. She turned to Song Qing-shu and said, I'm going back. Song Qing-shu frowned slightly. It's so late, you should stay in the palace. Because of his sensitive identity, he had purposely chased the palace guards and palace maids far away, so Yalu Nancian hadn't been discovered for so long. However, if she tried to go out again, she would inevitably run into the palace guards again, and it would be dangerous if she wasn't careful. Yalu Nancian's face that had just calmed down turned red again. Noticing the change in her expression, Song Qing-shu was slightly startled and understood that she had misunderstood. He could only explain with a bitter smile, You misunderstood. I'm not asking you to sleep with me. I'm arranging another room for you. Realizing what was going on, Yalu Nancian felt even more embarrassed. Rubbing her burning cheeks, she shook her head and said, Forget it. I still need to go back and look for my father's remains. I can't just leave his corpse in the wilderness. Since she mentioned her father, Song Qing-shu did not want to keep her in the palace anymore. He took out a token and handed it to her. In that case, I won't keep you. This is the token to enter and exit the Forbidden Palace. Take it with you. In the future, you won't have to take such risks in the palace. Okay, this time, Yalu Nancian did not refuse. After all, this thing was very useful, and she would have to go in and out of the palace often in the future. She took the token and walked out. When she reached the door, she paused for a moment and said, Take care of yourself. With that said, her face turned red and she hurriedly left, leaving only a faint fragrance in the air. Leaving Song Qing-shu and Zhao Min looking at each other. Zhao Min was a little embarrassed. What did she mean by that? Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly and explained, she was just showing her concern as a friend. Is that so? Zhao Min had a gloomy expression on her face. Why do I feel like she was purposely targeting me? Song Qing-shu walked over and burrowed back into the blanket, feeling that his hand was full of that astonishingly smooth body. Who asked you to target her so many times just now? She was tricked by you and suffered such a big loss. She had to get back at you. Zhao Min laughed coldly. Speaking up for another woman so quickly? My life is really tough. It's only the first night, and so many things have already happened. Seeing that she was pretending to be on the verge of tears, Song Qing-shu pulled her into his arms and kissed her earlobe. All right, stop pretending. Let's continue. Zhao Min's face heated up, but she pretended not to know and asked, Continue what? Of course we're continuing this. Song Qing-shu did not have the time to feign civility with her. He flipped over and got back on the horse, causing her to pout lightly. The morning sun shone in. Song Qing-shu opened his eyes immediately. After all, at his level of cultivation, he slept less than the average person. Luckily, the emperor in this world doesn't have to be like the ones in the TV dramas, waking up before dawn every day, or else it would really kill me. Song Qing-shu stretched and remembered that he was playing with Zhao Min before dawn. He couldn't help but feel his heart heat up, and he turned his head to observe the beauty lying beside him. At this time, Zhao Min was still in a deep sleep. Obviously, last night's hard work was a little too much for a young girl. Fortunately, she grew up in the Mongolian grasslands, so her body was better than the average Jiangnan woman, so she could endure. Because Song Qing-shu had just stretched, at this time, a corner of the blanket was lifted, revealing a large area of snow-white skin. Seeing the kiss marks all over it, Song Qing-shu felt infinite pity for her. Last night was really too crazy. As if sensing something, Zhao Min sleepily opened her eyes. Seeing that Song Qing-shu was looking at her, she couldn't help but mumble vaguely, "I still want to sleep, you can get up by yourself." After saying that, she turned over, not realizing that a large area of her soul-stirring curves was exposed in front of the man. Seeing this, Song Qing-shu's heart heated up, but in the end, reason won out. He hurriedly covered her with a blanket, covering the exposed scenery. "You sleep well. I'll tell the palace maids not to disturb you." Zhao Min responded vaguely. Apparently, she had fallen asleep again. Song Qing-shu hurriedly got up from the bed, put on his clothes, and went outside to breathe in the fresh morning air. Only then did he feel the boiling blood in his body gradually calm down. He couldn't help but secretly sigh. What a vixen! If I continue to stay in there, I might not be able to control myself. Suddenly, gentle footsteps came from behind. Song Qing-shu turned around and saw a beautiful woman in a white palace dress standing there. He couldn't help but smile. Sister-in-law, the person who came was naturally Icy Snow. Hearing the way he addressed her, she couldn't help but blush and rolled her eyes at him. "I told you not to call me sister-in-law in the future. I tried to change it previously, and I found that sister-in-law sounds better," replied Song Qing-shu with a smile. "I can't be bothered with you." Icy Snow naturally knew what he was thinking when he addressed her like that. Thinking of that, she felt weak all over, but she couldn't really get angry. "Sister-in-law, why are you up so early?" Song Qing-shu felt refreshed at this moment, and there was a smile in his tone. Icy Snow looked up at the sky and said with a strange expression, "It's getting late." Song Qing-shu blushed. To the people of the future, it was indeed early, but to the people of this world, they generally slept and woke up even earlier. It was indeed a little late now. "Have you undone the knot in the princess' heart?" Icy Snow had always been gentle, so she didn't really continue to tease him. It's not just the knot in the heart that was undone. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but feel a little proud. He thought to himself that he even undid her dress and removed the chastity guard on her thigh and successfully undid it. But looking at Icy Snow's gentle and pure face, Song Qing-shu hurriedly put away those dirty thoughts and hurriedly asked, "Sister-in-law, is there anything you need from me at this time? It's good that it's undone. I'm relieved now." Icy Snow's smile was always so gentle. "Actually, I'm here to bid farewell to you. I had lunch at the same table as the fire beacon giant, but I actually didn't recognize him at first. I'm really ashamed that I even called him my idol. Speaking of which, when he was reincarnated, how many women in his business career left a deep impression on me? Beside him were the cafeteria buns and the weight loss expert. Are there any of you old drivers who are their fans?" Chapter 1583. Farewell. Song Qing-shu was surprised. "Why?" Icy Snow rolled her beautiful eyes. "All these years, I've been running around in order to track down Murong Jingyue's whereabouts, and haven't fulfilled my duties as a mother. Now that I've avenged myself, I naturally have to return to take care of Fear and bring her to Sangzhou to pay respects to her father. There was an iron law in this world where blood must be paid with blood. Now that icy snow killed Murong Jingwe, it was indeed a moral principle for her to bring Hu Fei to pay respects to Hui Dao. Song Qingshu couldn't stop her. It's indeed necessary to pay respects to Big Brother Hu at this time. I was supposed to pay respects to him, but it's a pity that the situation is too tense recently, and I can't go to Zhangzhou. Icy Snow spat and interrupted him. If you go too, Big Brother Hu will jump out and hack you to death. Even though she looked angry, her eyes were moving when she spoke, which made her look even more charming and charming. Song Qingshu smiled awkwardly. All right, when are you going to leave? Icy Snow revealed a faint smile. I'm here to bid farewell to you. I'll be leaving the palace in a while. Song Qingshu was really surprised this time. So soon? Otherwise, would I be waiting in the palace to watch you and Miss Zhao being affectionate? Icy Snow rolled her eyes at him and stretched out her jade-like palm. Give it to me. Give what to me? Song Qingshu couldn't help but be startled. Of course, it's the icy moon saber. That's Big Brother Hu's relic. Icy Snow's brows were shrouded in sorrow when she mentioned her late husband. To her surprise, Song Qingshu shook his head. No, the icy moon saber has to stay with me. Why? Do you want to covet Fear's moon saber? The gentle Icy Snow suddenly glared at him like a female leopard. Looking at her expression, he knew that she had misunderstood. Song Qingshu smiled and said, although the power of the demonic blade is boundless, I don't take it seriously. The reason why I left the cold moon saber behind is not because I want to be invincible with the Mandarin duck saber, but to ensure that after you leave this time, you will have a reason to return to my side. He keenly sensed that Icy Snow's tone was a little strange today. When he thought about how she had avenged herself, he was suddenly a little worried that she would never return. Icy Snow blushed. Indeed, she wanted to use this opportunity to end her relationship with Song Qingshu. After all, her son was growing up day by day. How could she face him and the deceased Big Brother Hu? Therefore, she planned to use this memorial service for Hu Yidao to bring Hu Fei back to seclusion and end this ill-fated relationship. Unfortunately, Song Qingshu saw through her. But for some reason, she felt a faint sense of relief in her heart. Don't worry, I won't covet your moon saber. When the time comes, bring Fear over. I'll personally teach him my saber skills. When Song Qingshu said this, there was a sense of pride and confidence. After all, at his level of cultivation, a few casual pointers would be able to greatly benefit others. Icy Snow snorted and said, he has the Hu family's saber skills that are passed down in his family. Why should he learn your saber skills? Song Qingshu was rendered speechless by her words. Icy Snow then sighed and said, Qingshu, I've been going back to visit Fear occasionally all these years. From his words, I can tell that he always worships you as a hero. How do you think he will view you when he learns about our relationship? We'll deal with it when the time comes. We'll talk about the future in the future. Song Qingshu said faintly. He had already cultivated his state of mind to the point where he was calm and composed. He was confident that he could deal with anything, let alone a child. Icy Snow opened her mouth and finally sighed. I'll leave the moon saber with you for the time being. I'll take my leave first. Sister-in-law, take care. Song Qingshu didn't stop her this time. Instead, he solemnly bade farewell to her. Upon hearing the concern in his tone, Icy Snow felt a trace of warmth in her heart. She revealed a gentle smile and said, You too. Don't let your guard down just because you're capable. After all, the palace is full of dangers. What if you're seen by others in the palace without a mask in broad daylight? Song Qingshu enjoyed her doting tone and said in a cheerful voice, Don't worry, sister-in-law. I've already ordered that no eunuchs or palace maids are allowed to approach this place. No one will notice. Besides, with my skills, I'll be able to react in advance if someone approaches. Then, all right, Icy Snow thought that he was right and stopped persuading him. The two of them looked at each other for a while. In the end, she couldn't withstand his burning gaze and fled. Looking at her gradually disappearing figure, Song Qingshu couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Last night, a younger sister left, and this morning, another older sister left. You must be feeling sorry for her, right? Zhao Min's teasing laughter suddenly came from behind him. I don't know if I'm feeling sorry for her or not, but it's obvious that you're not. Song Qingshu turned around and replied while glancing at her legs. After all, Zhao Min's cleavage had just been broken. How could she withstand his aggressive gaze? When he glanced at her, she felt as if her skin was burning. All right. The imperial court is in a mess these days. There are so many things to do. Why are you wasting your time here instead of quickly dealing with them? In the end, under Zhao Min's incessant urging, Song Qingshu had no choice but to disguise himself as Yelu Hongji. He sat in the imperial study and continuously summoned many of the nobles in Shangjing. Some of the officials in the imperial court were purged, and new officials were promoted to clean up the mess left behind by Murong Jingwei. On this day, Song Qingshu was dealing with the memorials in the imperial study when he suddenly received a report from a eunuch that Lady Azu of the southern courtyard's first prince residence was requesting an audience. Although Azu didn't have any status, her relationship with Xiao Feng was known by everyone in Shangjing. She was everyone's future princess consort. Therefore, the eunuch didn't dare to neglect her request and hurriedly reported it to Song Qingshu. Azu. Song Qingshu frowned. He didn't need to think to know what she was here for. However, with the current situation, he temporarily couldn't release Xiao Feng. He simply waved his hand and said, I won't see her. Let her return. The eunuch continued to report, but Lady Azu said that she has a confidential matter to report to your majesty. She wants to use this to make a deal with your majesty. Oh, Song Qingshu's interest was piqued. Hearing Azu's words, it was clear that she wasn't speaking without reason. What kind of secret did she hold that gave her the confidence to save Xiao Feng? It really made him curious. Summon her in. Song Qingshu put down memorials and finally let out a breath of relief. Not long after, the eunuch led a delicate woman in a light pink dress in. She lifted the hem of her dress and knelt on the ground to pay her respects. In a crisp voice, she said, Azu pays respect to your majesty. Long live your majesty. In fact, with his friendship with Azu, it was impossible for him to make her pay respect. However, with Yelu Hongji's identity, he couldn't refuse. Looking at the girl kneeling in front of him, Song Qingshu couldn't help but sigh. Power was indeed an intoxicating thing. Rise! Song Qingshu naturally couldn't let her kneel for long. While instructing the eunuch to give her a seat, he curiously looked at her. Lady Azu, what kind of confidential matter do you have to report? Seeing everyone's comments on the official account, the monk felt a little smug. In the past, you always asked me why I didn't get beaten to death after taking so many photos. I already told you that I looked at your face, but you didn't believe me. Now that you see the photos, you finally understand. Also, many people ask me about Mars's gravity. I really forgot to take a photo, but I can roughly describe it. Mars is handsome and funny. Today, while waiting for the plane, I seem to have been writing novels. Chapter 1584. Aza did not directly answer and looked at the surrounding Tai Jian and maids. She had an expression of wanting to speak, but hesitating. Song Qingshu waved his hand in understanding, indicating for these people to leave first. Then he said with interest, Gunyang Azu, can you speak now? Azu showed hesitation. After a long silence, she suddenly took a deep breath and knelt down again as if she had made a final decision. Emperor, please forgive Azu's death sentence. Song Qingshu's brows furrowed slightly. What death sentence do you have to be forgiven? Quickly get up. His Majesty doesn't forgive Azu's death sentence. Azu doesn't dare to get up. Azu still respectfully knelt on the ground, as if she had really done something wrong. All right, Jin will forgive you. Song Qingshu naturally knew that this was her way of retreating in order to advance. However, in order to know the secret in her mouth, he did not mind playing along with her. Azu finally raised her head but did not get up. Reporting to Emperor, this commoner girl wants to make a deal with Emperor. Deal, you have guts. Song Qingshu did not comment and snorted faintly. Only then did Azu unhurriedly say, Just now His Majesty promised to forgive my innocence. Song Qing-shu also secretly admired Aju's calmness. It should be known that in this world, even a grown man may tremble in fear when he suddenly sees the emperor, but she, a young girl, can calmly talk about conditions. It is really rare. You are very calculative. Song Qing-shu faked a cold snort. What do you want to trade? I want to beg Emperor to let Xiao Dage go, Azu said crisply. Although her voice was soft, it was filled with determination. Song Qing-shu thought that it was as he expected. Xiao Feng has committed a great crime. You want to let him go? You're just a woman. What kind of bargaining chip can you offer? Aju raised her smooth chin, her face in high spirits. Is His Majesty's life enough? Song Qing-shu's eyes focused, and he suddenly sat up to stare at her. Azu did not show any fear as she stared back at him. After a long time, Song Qing-shu disdainfully curled his lips. If Azu Gunyang had Xiao Feng's skills, Zhen would still believe you. However, you are just a weak woman. What ability do you have to use Zhen's life as a bargaining chip? Facing the other's cold tone, Azu unhurriedly explained, I naturally do not have that ability, but what ability do you have to use Zhen's life as a bargaining chip? Song Qing-shu frowned slightly. What you mean? Azu shook her head. If I say it clearly, I will not to use. As long as your majesty agrees to release Big Brother Xiao after hearing everything, I will tell this existence that threatens your majesty's life. As the saying goes, a ruler does not go back on his word. I believe that as long as I confirm what I said, your majesty will not go back on his word. Song Qing-shu was very curious about her bargaining chip. In fact, he already had a faint guess, but he needed to confirm it. As for agreeing to release Xiao Feng, negotiations were a game between two people of equal strength, and how could a sheep have the qualifications to sit at the same table as a lion? Seeing him agree, Azu let out a sigh of relief. She stood up and said, This matter is confidential. In order to prevent eavesdropping, I ask that Emperor allow me to come closer to speak. Song Qing-shu was startled, thinking that Azu was not planning on imitating Jing Ku to assassinate Qin. He couldn't help but smile and reply, Okay, with his current cultivation, even if Azu wanted to plot against him, she would not be able to harm a single hair on his body. Song Qing-shu was startled. He thought that Aju was not planning to imitate Jing Ku to assassinate the Qin emperor, right? He could not help but give a faint smile as he answered, All right, based on his current level of cultivation, even if Aju wanted to plot against him, she would not be able to harm a single strand of his hair. Azu lifted the hem of her skirt and slowly walked over. When she came to his side, she bent down and whispered in his ear, Reporting to Emperor, the last time I was summoned to the palace for a banquet, I accidentally discovered that the Empress seemed... Song Qing-shu's heart moved. What happened to the Empress? After waiting for a long time and not receiving a reply, Song Qing-shu could not help but raise his head in curiosity. He found that Azu's mouth was wide open, her face full of shock. What happened to you? Song Qing-shu frowned. No, nothing. A trace of panic flashed through Azu's eyes. She hurriedly stood up and said nervously, I suddenly remembered that I have something to do with the Fu, so I will take my leave first. I hope that Emperor can forgive me. Didn't you want to use the secret to make a deal with Jin? Song Qing-shu said lightly. I just mentioned the Empress. What happened to the Empress? No. What? I just wanted to say that the Empress is very beautiful. Azu unconsciously retreated. Even though she pretended to be calm, her panicked words and incoherent answers deeply betrayed her current chaotic mood. After answering, Azu lowered her head and wanted to walk out. However, when she reached the door, she suddenly saw a corner of the dragon robe in front of her and had to stop. Does Emperor have any other orders? Acutely feeling the trembling in her voice, he could even feel that her body was involuntarily trembling under her dress. Song Qing-shu's voice became even more indifferent. Are you very afraid? No, I'm not afraid. Azu quickly responded. It was a pity that even a 3-year-old child would not believe her with her current words and expression. In reality, Azu was not someone who could not maintain her composure. It was a pity that she had suddenly discovered a secret that could shock the world. No matter how calm she was, she could not act as if nothing had happened. Not afraid, but I can feel that your body is trembling. As Song Qingshu spoke, he lifted a strand of hair from her temple. Look, even your hair is trembling. Emperor is worrying too much. Azu forced a smile. If it was a normal time, such an intimate action would have caused Azu to change color. But right now, she did not care at all. She just wanted to leave the imperial palace safely. You just mentioned the empress. Song Qingshu blocked in front of her, not showing any intention of moving out of the way. Did you find that she is not the real empress? Azu's expression changed, and she hurriedly said, Emperor is joking. How could the empress not be the real empress? Noticing her expression, Song Qingshu knew that he had not guessed wrong. I heard that Azu Gunyang is a master of disguise. You must have a way to see if others are in disguise. Am I right? Azu had a shocked expression and reflexively retorted. Azu just likes to play with disguises. How can she be considered a master of disguise? Much less see if others are in disguise. Is that so? Song Qingshu smiled and did not deny it. Just now, your expression suddenly changed. Did you see something on my face? Hearing his words, Azu felt a chill rise from the bottom of her heart. Her legs became soft and she could not stand straight, but she still made one last effort. Emperor, what is Emperor saying? Why can't I understand anything? Song Qingshu reached out to lift her chin. Looking at that face filled with panic, he couldn't help giving a sigh. Azu Gunyang should know, smart people in this world often do not live long. Chapter 1585. A shiver came from Azu's soul. If it wasn't for Song Qingshu borrowing strength from her side, perhaps she wouldn't even be able to stand steadily at this moment. Beggar sex Huang Bangzhu, Mongolian Junju Xiaomin, they are both well-known smart people in the world. Aren't they living very well? Song Qingshu smiled. Chief Huang has her father and master, one of the 5 uniques of the Central Plains, as well as the world-shaking Guijing as her backer. Zhao Min is even more incredible. She has the Ryong household behind her, and her subordinates are as many as the clouds in the sky. With a wave of her hand, she can destroy a large sect that has existed for hundreds of years. With this kind of capital, it naturally wouldn't be a problem for them to be smart. But Miss Azu, you are only a maid of the Murong family. Not to mention you, even the Murong family is not living up to their name. They are on the decline. For a person like you, intelligence will not bring you happiness. It will only bring you misfortune. He wasn't lying. Connecting this to Azu's fate in the original work, she was too smart. In the end, she became the victim of her own cleverness, causing her to be forever separated from Xiaofeng. She also indirectly contributed to Xiaofeng's tragic ending. Azu finally collapsed. Her entire body swayed and fell to the ground. She muttered, Big brother, Xiao doesn't know about this matter. I hope your majesty will let him go. Hearing that her tone was filled with the solemnity of sacrificing herself to help others, Song Qingshu lightly said, When did I say that I was going to kill you? Azu was startled. You won't kill me? In her view, she had discovered such a shocking secret. Being silenced was the only ending. Although it's a bit troublesome, I won't kill you. Song Qingshu spoke from the bottom of his heart. When he was at his lowest, Azu had helped him greatly. How could he be the kind of heartless and ungrateful person who would bite the hand that fed him? Hearing his words, Azu's mind suddenly flashed, and she subconsciously blurted out, You're Song Qingshu. In fact, she was a little puzzled at the beginning because the other party's disguise looked a little familiar. Knowing that the other party sincerely said that he would not kill her, she quickly connected a series of clues. Although she was not sure, Song Qingshu matched all the characteristics. Unfortunately, as soon as Azu said it, she regretted it. Song Qingshu couldn't help but sigh. Miss Azu, I just said that smart people can't live. Why do you have to be so clever? At this point, Azu gradually calmed down. Is it really you? After all, whether it was him or not, it was difficult to change her fate in the end. However, She did not want to be a muddled ghost after death. Song Qing-shu took off his mask and revealed his original appearance. He couldn't help but sigh faintly. Azu, I originally wanted to keep you alive, but you insisted on revealing everything. Now that things have come to this, what do you want me to do? Seeing that it was really Song Qing-shu, Azu's eyes showed a series of complicated thoughts, including doubt, shock, and realization. Qing-shu, you're really a person who keeps creating miracles. Song Qing-shu helped her to sit on the chair. I just didn't expect that we would meet under such circumstances. Azu also sighed at the fickleness of fate. After all, their relationship had always been good. I didn't expect that after our last reunion, it would be the time for us to be separated by life and death. Song Qing-shu didn't express his opinion because he was currently having a headache on how to deal with the other party. Originally, he could just kill her, but Azu had done him a great favor and was also his friend. He couldn't do such a ruthless thing like destroying a flower. However, it was even more impossible to let her go. One must know that this was his greatest secret. Once it was exposed, his painstaking efforts over the years would all go to waste. At that time, no matter how big the world was, there would probably be no place for him to stay. At that time, he could only bring a few women and live in seclusion in the mountains. This matter had also sounded an alarm for him. His current situation looked great, controlling the Qing, Jin, Liao, Golden Snake Camp, and large areas of power in Jianghuai. However, his foundation wasn't stable. Apart from the Golden Snake Camp, the other forces could be lost at any time. It seemed like he had to speed up his plan to build a network of confidants and direct troops. That way, even if his identity was exposed in the end, several countries would still be under his control. However, it was a pity that it was easier said than done. Right now, he was at a loss like Liu Bei in the past. He urgently needed a strategic plan and concrete implementation. Originally, Zhao Min was a very suitable candidate. It was just that their relationship was uncertain in the past, and with her background, Song Qing-shu didn't dare to fully trust her, let alone reveal all his secrets. However, now that their relationship had taken a step forward, he really needed her to give him advice in the future. Seeing that Song Qing-shu was in contemplation, Azhu knew that he was thinking about how to deal with her. So she answered, Qing-shu, you and I are old acquaintances. I only want to ask one thing of you before I die. What is it? Song Qing-shu declined to comment. Azu hurriedly said, I hope you can let Big Brother Xiao go. He is your sworn brother. Not to mention that he was imprisoned by the Emperor because he refused to lead troops to attack the Golden Snake Camp. Song Qing-shu didn't directly answer. Instead, he said with a smile that wasn't a smile, Big Sister Azu mentioned that we have an old friendship. If Big Brother Xiao heard it, he might think that there was something between us. Azu's face turned slightly red. She angrily glared at him. Qing-shu, everyone knows about your romantic reputation, but I am your sworn brother's woman. Speaking of which, I can be considered your sister-in-law. Don't you think it's a little too much to make such a joke? Sister-in-law? Song Qing-shu's gaze became increasingly strange. As far as I know, you and Big Brother Xiao are not husband and wife in name, nor are you husband and wife in reality. What kind of sister-in-law is this? Big Brother Xiao and I are in love with each other. We have already made a promise to grow old together. In this life, he won't marry anyone but me, and I won't marry anyone but him. Is this enough? Azu's tone was calm and firm. It was obvious that she had incomparable confidence in this relationship. Being my sister-in-law is not a wise choice. Song Qing-shu gave her a meaningful look, causing Azu's heart to jump. She inexplicably panicked. All right, I won't kill you. Song Qing-shu withdrew his gaze. But I need you to do something for me. What is it? Hearing his words, Azu's hope of rebirth was ignited. After all, no one wanted to die. Moreover, she still wanted to grow old together with Xiaofeng. In this world, I'm afraid that you and I are the best at disguising techniques. Song Qing-shu had thought that his disguising techniques had already surpassed his predecessors. However, this time, Azu had actually seen through his flaws. It was obvious that Azu's attainments in disguising were still slightly better than his. Of course, she was limited by her gender, figure, and the difference in their skills. In total, she might not be as good as him. However, Azu shook her head. My mother's disguising techniques are even better than mine. Song Qingshu was startled. He wondered when he would really want to see it. At the same time, he was somewhat envious of Duan Zhengchun. Having Wan Xingzhu was equivalent to having countless women. He could play with different people every day. Shaking his head, he dispelled the wild thoughts in his mind. Song Qingshu understood that now was not the time to think about such things. It just so happens that I'm short of people in Liao. Help me do something. Disguise yourself as the Empress Xiao Guanyin and deceive people. He would leave Liao sooner or later. It was clearly not enough if Su Quan stayed behind alone. With Zhao Min's status and ability, it was destined that she could not stay in Liao for long. If Azu disguised herself as Xiao Guanyin and Su Quan disguised herself as Yelu Hongji, then the situation here could be perfectly controlled. You want me to pretend to be the Empress? Azu's elegant brows furrowed. I can do that, but aren't you afraid that I'll sell you out? Chapter 1586. What is it? Azu suddenly had a bad feeling in her heart. After all, even she couldn't be sure that she could successfully keep the secret, so how could the other party be sure? Of course it's a three-pronged attack. Song Qingshu's brain was working quickly, constantly perfecting the details. A three-pronged attack. Azu blinked blankly. First, take this medicine. Song Qingshu took out a red pill from his pocket and handed it to her. Azu didn't hesitate at all. She grabbed it and stuffed it in her mouth, causing Song Qingshu to be startled. You didn't even ask what medicine it was, and you just ate it like that. In any case, I've discovered such a shocking secret, so it's destined that there won't be a good ending. Since you don't plan to kill me right away, it's obvious that this medicine is used to control me. There are many similar poisons in the martial world. Anyway, it won't kill me right away, so there's no need to ask, Azu said calmly. Song Qingshu looked at her in surprise. Sister Azu is indeed exceptionally intelligent. You figured out the key to this so quickly. Don't call me sister. I don't dare to have such a cruel and merciless younger brother like you. Azu's face was stiff, and she didn't give him any face at all. Song Qingshu didn't take offense. Instead, he jokingly said, Aren't you afraid that I gave you an aphrodisiac? This time, it was Azu's turn to be startled. When she thought that there was such a possibility, she couldn't help but become nervous. She hurriedly checked her body, and when she found that there was nothing wrong with her body, she happened to see the playful look in the other party's eyes. She knew that she had been tricked by him, and she couldn't help but glare at him hatefully. Song Qingshu laughed. Obviously, he had a great sense of accomplishment playing a little trick on her. This medicine is called the Three-Corpse Brain Pill. It's the sacred medicine of the Sun Moon sect. The previous leaders have used this medicine to ensure the loyalty of their subordinates. As he spoke, he took out another Three-Corpse Brain Pill and peeled off the red outer shell, revealing the gray layer inside. This is the corpse worm in the Three-Corpse Brain Pill. Usually, it's restrained by the outside layer of medicine. Every year, during the Dragon Boat Festival, the sect members go to Blackwood Cliff to receive the New Year's antidote. Without the new antidote to suppress the corpse worm, the poisoned person's brain will be poisoned and will die miserably. As a member of the Moron clan, Aju had naturally heard of the famous 3 corpses for brains pill. She had even personally seen an elite of Blackwood Cliff who had been attacked by corpse insects. When she thought of the miserable state he had been in when he died, her pretty face instantly turned pale. You don't have to worry. As long as you're obedient, I'll give you the antidote every year to ensure that the medicine will never take effect. Song Qingshu smiled. Unexpectedly, Azu suddenly raised her head. If I'm under your control for the rest of my life, I'll be like a walking corpse. It's better to die now. As she spoke, she was about to hit the pillar next to her. Song Qingshu was so frightened that he hurriedly got up and stopped her. Are you crazy? I'm not crazy. It's better to die than to live like this. Azu shook off his hand, and said in an indifferent tone. Song Qingshu frowned. He knew that if he didn't rekindle her hope of living, things would be troublesome. I don't want to control you for the rest of your life. As long as you work for me for 3 years. No, 2 years at most. When I've arranged everything, you can retire with success. I'll also completely detoxify the poison in your body. There's finally a trace of fluctuation in Azu's eyes, but her lips were still tightly closed and she didn't speak. Song Qingshu had to continue to add more information. Don't forget that your brother Zhao's life is still in my hands. As long as you make a slight move, his life will be in danger. He's your sworn brother. Azu bit her lips and raised her head to glare at him fiercely. If he wasn't my sworn brother, how could he still live until now? Song Qingshu snorted. I'm not living for myself alone. I'm still shouldering the responsibility of too many people. I can't let more people be implicated because of a momentary sense of loyalty. You make it sound so dignified, but it's all for your own ambition. Azu said indignantly. Song Qingshu didn't defend himself. He said lightly, whatever you say, not only is your brother Zhao's life in my hands, but also your sister, Z, and your parents' lives are in my hands. Your mother is at Little Mirror Lake, and your father is slightly more troublesome. But you should know that with my martial arts, it's not difficult to kill a mere Jinan Wang of the Supreme Court. According to the original work, Azu pretended to be Duan Zhengchun and died under Xiaofeng's hands. Knowing that she was an orphan since childhood, she attached great importance to family, so Song Qingshu used this as a threat. Despicable. Azu gnashed her teeth and glared at him. Song Qingshu didn't mind at all. Despicable and noble are not suitable to be used to judge a politician. Azu bit her lip and calmed her agitated mood. All right, what else do you want me to promise? Just now, I mentioned a 3-pronged strategy. The first layer of insurance is to use your life as a threat. The second layer is to use your parents, sisters, and loved ones as a threat. Song Qingshu paused before continuing. Originally, this kind of double insurance is enough to deal with ordinary people. But you are beautiful and intelligent, and the stakes are too high. I have to be careful and add the last layer of insurance. What is it? Azu looked at him with an unfriendly expression. Song Qingshu didn't answer her directly. Instead, he brought up another unrelated matter. Azu, your biggest wish in this life should be to herd horses and sheep with Brother Xiao, right? Thinking of the beautiful future that she had built many times, Azu's eyes finally bloomed with a glimmer of light, but it quickly dimmed. Now that things have come to this, there's no need to talk about stuffing cattle and sheep. I mean what I say. As long as you work for me for 2 years, I will make your wish come true. Song Qingshu then changed the topic. But you and Brother Xiao are not greedy for life and afraid of death. I am worried that you will choose to die together with him. Tell Brother Xiao about this directly. That way, you could be a pair of lovebirds with the same fate. Azu's eyes moved. She did have such a thought. Once there was no way out, it was better to live and die together with Xiao Feng than to be manipulated by others. Song Qingshu paid attention to her reaction and knew that his guess was not far from the truth. He then said, with Brother Zhao's personality, he will indeed die with you. However, he has always been very clear about what he likes and what he hates. If he knows that you have done something wrong to him, will he still die with you? What do you mean? Azu was shocked. She hurriedly retreated a few steps. At the same time, she tightly grasped her clothes and quickly said, Brother Xiao is a man of indomitable spirit. Moreover, he knows my mind and temperament. If I am unfortunate to be tarnished by you, he will not dislike me in the slightest. Song Qingshu nodded. Yes, Brother Xiao is indeed not that kind of person. But what if he sees you offer yourself to him? Nonsense. Azu snorted. Her voice was obviously filled with disdain. Is that so? Song Qingshu smiled faintly and casually beckoned to her. Come here. Chapter 1587. Song Qingshu returned to his throne and casually waved his hand at Azu, calling her over. When Azu heard his words, she felt a bit indignant in her heart. She thought to herself, You're just boasting, but I'm not going to listen to you. Let's see what you can do when the time comes. Just as she was feeling pleased with herself, her expression suddenly changed. This was because she found that her body was not under her control, and she actually involuntarily walked toward the other person. What's going on? Azu opened her mouth, but shockingly found that she could not speak. Even though her heart was resisting with all her might, she still unconsciously walked to Song Qingshu's side. Song Qingshu nodded his head, as if he was very satisfied with her reaction. He then patted his thigh. Sit up. Azu's face instantly flushed red. She and Xiao Feng loved each other, and had already made a promise to grow old together. How could she sit in another man's embrace? Unfortunately, her body was still not under her control, and she actually sat on top of him. What kind of sorcery is this? Azu was greatly shocked, and for a moment, the embarrassment of sitting in another man's embrace was washed away. Even though she could not speak, Song Qingshu could more or less guess what she was thinking. While feeling her soft and elastic body, he explained, "You're from the Murong family, so you should know that there's a soul-shifting technique in the Nine Yin Sutra that can control a person's mind. Right now, you're under my soul-shifting technique." After explaining, Song Qingshu added another sentence. Of course, even if other people cultivated the soul-shifting technique in the Nine Yin Sutra, they would not be able to do it to this degree. The reason why I can do as I please is because I have also fused with a few other heaven-penetrating divine arts. So you can be at ease. If you meet other practitioners of the Nine Yin Sutra in the future, I'm afraid it will be very difficult for them to control you like this. If it was possible, Azu really wanted to slap his face. How can I be at ease in this kind of situation? No matter how much I said just now, I'm afraid that in your heart, you would not agree, so I can only let you see it with your own eyes. Song Qingshu faintly smiled, and his eyes became as deep as the bright starry sky. Strip! Azu was startled at first. She was shocked to find that her hands had begun to unbutton her clothes. This time, she was scared out of her wits. As a woman of Jianghu, although it was somewhat indecent to have physical contact with other men occasionally, it was unavoidable. However, once her body was exposed in front of another man, it was no different from losing her chastity. Unfortunately, no matter how much she prayed, no matter how much she resisted in her heart, she could not stop her hands. Azu had always prided herself on her dexterity, but at this moment, she wished that she could chop off her own hands with a knife. Unfortunately, no knife appeared, and no one could hear her begging. Her fingers were slender and nimble, undoing the buttons on her dress one by one. Every time a button was undone, her heart would break a little more. Even though she wasn't an official Wang Fei, the Southern Courtyard's King's Fu treated her as a true Wang Fei. Her food and clothing were all the standards of a Wang Fei. The dress she was wearing right now was made of the highest quality silk. In order to be comfortable, it was thin and smooth, which was its greatest characteristic. Without the restraints of the buttons and belt, the silk dress quickly slid down her tender skin, revealing skin whiter than snow. It formed a sharp contrast with the bright red undergarment. The women of Jiangnan's rivers are gentler than water. Song Qingshu couldn't help but praise. At this time, Azu's face was covered in tears. Her eyes were 3 parts embarrassed, 3 parts hateful, and at the same time, 3 parts begging as she looked at the other. Song Qingshu knew what she was begging for, but he was still unmoved. Continue. Azu's heart finally sank to the bottom, but she couldn't stop her hands from moving toward the thin silk. She could only bite her lips desperately, trying to use the pain to wake herself up. Looking at the faint traces of blood seeping from her lips, Song Qingshu shook his head. This won't do. What if you hurt your body later? As he said this, he stretched out a finger and touched her body, sending a wisp of joyful, vital energy into her body. The vital energy of joyful was really overbearing. Once it entered her body, Azu felt that the depths of her soul was no longer so cold. It was as if there was a surge of heat. It was so hot that she wanted to get rid of the restraints on her body so that her current behavior didn't seem so unacceptable. Finally, the last bit of obstruction left her. Azu's mind was blank. Before it happened, she was filled with fear and resistance. But now that it was happening, she felt that it wasn't as hard to accept as she had imagined. At this moment, she felt a sense of relief. Song Qing-shu carefully looked at the beauty in front of him and couldn't help but sigh. As expected of sisters, even their physical characteristics are so similar. At this time, Azu's mind was filled with all kinds of complicated emotions, but most of them were embarrassment and fear. She didn't notice the subtext in his words. Obviously, Song Qing-shu didn't give her time to breathe. He stretched out his hand and snapped his fingers. Come, sit up and move yourself. Although Azu was a young girl, she could understand what he meant. She couldn't help but feel ashamed and resentful. Unfortunately, she couldn't control herself. Then, the trembling heat in her soul gradually dissolved her embarrassment, causing her to sway and her eyes to become blurred. Song Qing-shu's fingers gently slid across her skin, and another wisp of cooling vital qi entered her body. Seeing that the time to dissolve the joy vital qi was almost up, he snapped his fingers again and released her restriction. All right, you're free now. Azu's eyes were still blurred. She was stunned for a moment before she finally reacted. She let out a scream and pushed him away. Unfortunately, her body was already weak and she couldn't stand steadily. She instantly fell to the ground. Song Qing-shu came to her side and squatted down. Why are you so agitated? I didn't do anything to you. Azu wanted to cry, but had no tears. She looked at his naked body and thought to herself, You said you didn't do anything to me? His gaze was so intense that she hurriedly curled up and tried to cover her body. Unfortunately, her hands were only so big. What she could cover was just a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. Song Qing-shu casually touched her thigh and then showed his hand in front of her. He calmly said, Now do you believe that I can make you take the initiative to throw yourself into my arms? I believe you. Even though it was a little humiliating, Azu had no choice but to admit it. She didn't want to be tormented by him again. If you disregard your own life, and even disregard your familial ties, I will let Xiao Feng see with his own eyes how you take the initiative to throw yourself into my arms. At that time, you should understand how he will look at you even without me saying it. Song Qing-shu calmly looked at her. Azu bit her lips. When she thought of that scene, the most precious thing in her life would suddenly collapse. She immediately shuddered. You really are a demon. Song Qing-shu picked up a blanket and gently wrapped it around her body. Miss Azu, I am indebted to you, so I won't kill you. However, this matter is of great importance. I can only do this. I hope you can understand. Hearing his words, Azu couldn't help but laugh out of extreme anger. She thought to herself, How do you expect me to understand such a matter? However, she didn't dare to show it. After all, she was extremely fortunate that she hadn't truly lost her innocence. If she angered him, she couldn't guarantee that she would encounter something even more terrifying. Chapter 1588. Azu fell into silence as she silently put on her clothes. After a long time, she replied in a hoarse voice, Okay, I promise you. Song Qing-shu hesitated and added, Azu, I know you hate me now. You won't be able to forgive me even if I explain too much, so I won't explain. You can stay in the palace for this period of time and familiarize yourself with what you have to do next. After Azu put on her clothes, she said lightly, Actually, I also know that if I hadn't helped you in the past, you wouldn't have had to go through so much trouble. You could have just killed me. Song Qing-shu looked at her in surprise. He didn't expect that she would have this kind of reaction. She was indeed the considerate Azu in the original work. But to be so considerate to this extent, it was too strange. As expected, Azu immediately said, But don't expect me to thank you and forgive you. I won't in this lifetime. Song Qing-shu was instantly relieved. This was the reaction he should have. Azu, you should be thinking about your brother Xiao. It's easy to fall in love with another man if you remember him for a lifetime. Azu bit her lip and looked at him deeply. Your flirting skills are useless on me. Song Qing-shu smiled slightly and said carelessly, "You are Brother Zhao's woman. I didn't think about flirting with you." Azu's breathing stopped. She thought, "You didn't just flirt with me. You flirted with my thigh there." But this was clearly not the time to argue with him about this kind of thing. She could only say with a straight face, "Can I leave now?" Of course. Someone, bring Miss Azu to find a room to rest. Before Song Qing-shu could finish, he was interrupted by Azu. "Don't let me stay in the palace publicly," Azu said nervously. In previous dynasties, when the female relatives of foreign officials stayed in the palace, it would cause a great uproar. Only now did Song Qing-shu realize that Yelu Hongji had already imprisoned the king of the southern courtyard. If the officials of the court found out that he was openly staying the southern courtyard's Wang Fei overnight in the imperial palace, all kinds of speculations would fly out. Even if there was nothing between the two of them, in the eyes of outsiders, Azu would have already lost her chastity to the emperor. "Sister Azu is really thoughtful," Song Qing-shu said happily. "You're older than me. Why are you calling me sister?" Azu sneered. Normally, it was not strange to hear him call her sister. After all, she had helped him before. Moreover, they were familiar with each other, so it was reasonable for him to call her sister. However, after the series of things that happened just now, it was simply ear-piercing to her ears. "Where I come from, regardless of age, we all like to call women sister. If we're young, we could just call them little sister to show our affection." Thinking of some things from his previous life, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but sigh. Azu noticed a series of complex emotions on his face: regret, confusion, and worry. She couldn't help but be secretly shocked. It should be known that this person was always so calm and composed, and his every movement was full of confidence. She didn't know what made him show such an expression. However, her curiosity was quickly dispelled. After all, she didn't have the time to care about these things. "You're talking nonsense with a straight face. I'm too lazy to talk to you." Then she turned and left. Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly and hurriedly called for a young palace maid. He didn't reveal Azu's identity and only asked her to arrange for her to stay in the palace. When Azu's figure disappeared, Song Qing-shu sat on the dragon throne and glanced at his lower abdomen. He showed a helpless expression. "Why are you pretending to be Lu Xiaohui? Now light up your own fire." However, although he was a little uncomfortable at this time, he didn't regret his choice. In this world, one couldn't always be led by the nose by desire. Some women shouldn't be touched. Of course, if it was a few years ago, he might not be able to distinguish so clearly. But now, he was no longer hot-headed. Speaking of which, he still had some regrets about Huang Rong's matter. He always felt that he seemed to have done something wrong. However, sometimes he asked himself, if he could do it again, would he make the same choice? He was very clear about the answer. Although Azu was also a beauty, she lacked the unique charm of Huang Rong and the countless men in the future who longed for her. So, it wasn't enough to make him lose his mind. At the thought of Huang Rong, Song Qing-shu felt that his whole body was getting hotter. He picked up a cup of herbal tea and drank it, but it didn't work. At this moment, there was a knock on the door outside. Then, Xiaomin walked in slowly with a faint smile on her lips. "I just saw Azu leave this room in a daze. Did you do something to her?" Song Qing-shu said gloomily. "I didn't do anything to her." "You didn't do anything?" Xiaomin curled her lips. "I even saw that a few buttons on her clothes were wrongly buttoned." Song Qing-shu looked depressed. "I really didn't do anything. If I did something, would I still be like this now?" After that, he leaned back to let her see his appearance at this time. Zhao Min leaned over to take a look, and her delicate face instantly blushed. She couldn't help but spit. "If you didn't have any bad intentions, would you be like this?" Song Qing-shu pulled her into his arms, bit her ear, and said, "You came at the right time." Zhao Min blushed and pushed him away. "Stop it. I came to you for serious business." "Now, I'm here for serious business. We'll talk about other things later." Song Qing-shu directly opened his arms and pulled her into his arms again. "You're so annoying." Zhao Min pouted coquettishly. This time, she didn't resist. She raised her chin and passionately responded to his rain-like kisses. The young girl enjoyed the feeling very much. She even took the initiative to lead Song Qingshu's hand into her lapel. Song Qingshu took the opportunity to peel her clothes away from her shoulders. Even though it wasn't his first time looking at her, he still couldn't help but feel his breathing quicken when he saw her slender and delicate collarbone, round and fair shoulders, and the magnificent expanse of her chest. A large part of her skin was exposed to the air. Zhao Min's body couldn't help but tremble. A layer of fine goosebumps appeared on her delicate skin. "I'm cold. You'll be cold soon," Song Qingshu said softly in her ear. After that, he pulled her into his arms and used his true qi to wrap the beauty in his arms. Zhao Min suddenly felt warm all over. It was as if she was next to a warm sun. She couldn't help but moan in comfort. However, she didn't realize how tempting it was to let out such a coquettish sound in her current state. It was like a charging horn. Song Qingshu couldn't help but hug her slender waist tightly. After some time, Song Qingshu's satisfied voice finally sounded in the room. "You said that you came to me for serious business. What is it?" Chapter 1589. Song Qingshu felt a strange sense of accomplishment as he looked at the weak and powerless beauty in his arms. His fingers gently slid across her skin that was even more tender than jade. He said with pity, "Rest well for a while." Zhao Min turned her body and found a comfortable position to lie in his embrace. She rested for a moment like a cat, and only when she felt her soul return to her body did she say in a slightly lazy manner, "Weren't you always having a headache about how to deal with Xiao Feng? I've thought about it carefully, and I've vaguely thought of a way." "What plan?" Song Qingshu was overjoyed. The arrival of Azu had given him a headache about how to deal with Xiao Feng. He couldn't kill him, but he couldn't let him go either. With Zhao Min's intelligence, since she had thought of a plan, it must be a good plan that could satisfy both sides. "Song Qingshu, do you know Ma Chao from the Three Kingdoms period?" Zhao Min curled up in Song Qingshu's arms like a little girl. The crisp sound of Song Qingshu's name made one's body and bones go limp. "Ma Chao from Western Liang. Of course I know," Song Qingshu said as he reached out to explore her chest. Even though it wasn't the first time he had touched it, he was still shocked by the turbulence. He couldn't help but sigh at how nutritious it was to drink milk and eat meat from a young age. "We're talking about serious matters. Stop fooling around." Zhao Min's heart trembled at his actions. She rolled her eyes at him coquettishly and said, "We can imitate Imperial Uncle Lu and use Ma Chao's method to deal with Xiao Feng." "What do you mean?" Song Qingshu also became serious when they talked about serious matters. "Use his name but not his reality," Zhao Min said slowly. Her eyes flashed with wisdom. "Use his name but not his reality." Song Qingshu muttered to himself. He seemed to have understood something. Zhao Min continued to explain. Ma Chao had a godlike reputation in Western Liang. He later forced Cao Cao to cut off his beard and cast off his robe. His family had been a family of generals for generations. In terms of official rank and nobility, he was on par with Liu Bei at that time. In addition, he was once an overlord. It was a headache to sincerely subdue him without suffering a backlash. However, this didn't trouble Liu Bei. On the surface, he placed Ma Chao at the head of the generals and gave him a high title and official position. However, he was different from Guan Yu, Zhang Fei of Brazil, and Wei Yin of Hanzhou. Ma Chao's position as Liangzhou was only a nominal position. After all, Liangzhou was under Wei's control. Zhao Min paused for a moment before continuing. At the same time, he used Ma Chao's reputation to successfully force Liu Zhang to surrender. During the Battle of Hanzhou, he instigated tens of thousands of D tribesmen to rebel. Liu Bei's use of people is truly admirable. Among all the heroes in the world, Liu Bei's methods are indeed brilliant. Song Qingshu nodded. Therefore, we can use the same method to deal with Xiao Feng. Zhao Min's eyes were as bright as the stars. Xiao Feng's reputation is well known throughout the world. We can use his name to accomplish many things. Of course, we can't use it in Liao. We can use it in other places. For example, to intimidate some bandits in the Golden Snake Camp. As far as I know, there are many mountains in the Golden Snake Camp's territory that seem to surrender to you on the surface. However, in reality, they have ulterior motives. That's right. Song Qingshu nodded slightly. The Golden Snake Camp had risen too quickly. In just 1 or 2 years, they had controlled a territory that spanned thousands of miles. A few years ago, the world was in chaos. Shandong, Lianhuai, and the Central Plains had risen together. There were countless rebel armies of various sizes. Although they were called rebel armies, most of them were bandits who ruled the mountains and forests. Because the Golden Snake Camp had risen too quickly, these people had no choice but to surrender on the surface. However, both sides were well aware that this would become a hidden danger sooner or later. Now, using Xiao Feng's reputation to intimidate and eliminate these people was definitely a good choice. However, using the famous king of the southern courtyard to intimidate mere bandits is still a little overkill. Apart from that, we can also use him to deal with the Qing Kingdom and the Jin Kingdom. Zhao Min's face was pressed against his chest. While listening to the man's heartbeat, she stretched out her slender fingers and drew circles on his chest. Although the Qing Kingdom and the Jin Kingdom are actually under your control, your identity cannot be revealed. There are many voices in the two countries that want to attack the Golden Snake Camp and expand their territory. Now that Xiao Feng is in charge, we can use him to dispel these people's thoughts so that you don't have to worry about these things. That's great. Min Min, you really are my good wife. Song Qingshu was overjoyed. Although he was the emperor of the two countries, the decisions of the entire country did not change according to his will alone. There were many ministers in the two countries who had ideas about attacking the Golden Snake Camp, but he had thought of ways to stop them. However, it was also troublesome to constantly deal with them. Now that the famous Xiao Feng was in charge, coupled with the internal and external troubles of the Jin and the Qing Kingdom, it was already enough to shut those people's mouths. Actually, it will be more useful to use him to intimidate Liao in the future. Zhao Min pursed her lips and smiled. However, based on King Zhao's temperament, he most likely won't help you attack his own people and country. Indeed, but this is already enough. Song Qingshu nodded. Suddenly realizing something, he could not help but frown. But Big Brother Xiao is a dragon among men. Once he is released, he will be like a hidden dragon entering the abyss. It is also impossible for me to use Azu to threaten him. How to ensure that he will act according to our wishes in the future is a very big problem. He was worried that after he released Xiao Feng, he would return to the mountains and live in seclusion or wander the world. That would really be a great loss. This is not difficult to solve. Zhao Min seemed to have already considered this aspect. When the time comes, don't release him using the identity of Yelu Hongji. Instead, use the identity of Song Qingshu to break out of prison and rescue him to the Golden Snake Camp. In this way, he won't be able to return to Liao. At the same time, he has received your kindness. Based on his temperament, he will not be able to leave calmly. He will certainly take the kindness before leaving. Then, you can use your emotions to persuade him to stay and help you for 2 years. But of course, we have to balance it out. Zhao Min thought for a moment and came up with a plan. Isn't Z one of your people? She and Azu are biological sisters. Their appearances are 80 to 90% similar. The reason why it is easy to distinguish them is that one is born in Jiangnan, gentle and considerate, while the other is born in the path of diabolism, ruthless, arrogant, and rude. This causes their temperaments to be very different. If Z changes into Azu's clothes and pretends to be Azu's character, she can pretend to be Azu and stay by Xiao Feng's side as an informant. At the same time, she can also subtly influence Xiao Feng's decision. Isn't this the best solution? Let Z pretend to be Azu. Song Qingshu's heart was moved. He had never thought of this before, but after being reminded by Zhao Min, he suddenly realized that this was a very good idea. After all, he could not make the real Azu do anything against Xiao Feng, but Z could. The current Z and Xiao Feng did not have much of a relationship, so she was not the Z who was dead set on Xiao Feng in the original work. And you don't have to worry. Xiao Feng is recognized as a gentleman. Unless he is married, he will definitely not have any improper behavior, towards the women around him. Seeing that Song Qing-shu was deep in thought, Zhao Min smiled and explained, "Anyway, you should release Azu in 2 years. When that time comes, you can secretly swap Z back. Of course I believe in Xiao Feng's character. I am worried that Z, with her fierce and arrogant temperament, can successfully pretend to be the kind and considerate Azu. In the original work, Xiao Feng and Azu had already agreed to grow old together. Before Azu died, she asked him to take off her clothes and look at the words tattooed on her shoulder. At first, he avoided it. Such a gentleman really did not have to worry about anything. Don't worry, women are born to act. Zhao Min pursed her lips and smiled, as if talking about herself. Her eyes were like crescent moons, and she was as sly as a little fox. Chapter 1590. Then, are you also acting in front of me? Song Qing-shu put his hands under her armpits, lifting her up and placing her in his arms, sitting opposite him. He looked at her expression in annoyance. Being carried like a little girl by the other party, Zhao Min's heart trembled. At this moment, she felt the masculinity of the man. Women seem to have no resistance in front of man. How can I lose my body in an act? Song Qing-shu laughed. That's hard to say. What if it's a honey trap? I love to fall for honey traps the most. Zhao Min took the opportunity to hook her arms around his neck and pouted. You're still thinking about other women while hugging me. I'm going to be jealous. Song Qing-shu felt his whole body go limp from her coquettish ravings. He said with a smile, with your intelligence and wisdom, no matter how many women you have, how could they be your match? For example, Yalu Nanxian and Azi. You only needed a few words to send them away. You even sold them off and made them count the money for you. Zhao Min giggled. Why are men so smart? Besides, didn't you agree? Song Qing-shu's face was gloomy. I'm wondering if one day, Zhuo and the others will also be sold off by you. Don't worry. That little sister Zhuo of yours looks as pure as a white rabbit on the surface. But in reality, she's as cunning as a ghost. It's good enough that she didn't sell me off. Zhao Min snorted, obviously holding a great grudge against Zhou Zhuo. Song Qing-shu's face darkened. Knowing that these two women loved and hated each other, they would probably be entangled for the rest of their lives. He decisively changed the topic. All right, it's about time to cure you of the 3-corpse brain god pill. So soon? Zhao Min's expression changed. Her previously relaxed expression instantly became nervous. Song Qing-shu gently stroked her hair. You don't have to worry. I've already familiarized myself with your body these past few days. I know every inch of your skin and meridians. There shouldn't be any problems. You're so annoying. Hearing that he was familiar with her from inside out, Zhao Min's pale face couldn't help but blush, and she regained some of her usual beauty. Then let's start now. Song Qing-shu reached out his hand to support her slender waist. He had already begun to silently circulate the true qi in his body. That's it? Zhao Min asked in surprise. Isn't this a good position? Are you planning to go to bed? Song Qing-shu said with a smile. Zhao Min blushed and hurriedly shook her head. Let's do it here. Do I need to do anything to cooperate with you? After all, she had to get rid of the poison of the 3-corpse brain divine pill. Her heart was restless, and she hoped to do something to increase the probability of success. No need to just spread your legs. Song Qing-shu looked down and gestured. Hearing this, Zhao Min was embarrassed. She bit her lip and rolled her eyes. However, the two of them had already been stuck together for the past few days. Now that there were no outsiders, she didn't mind taking the initiative, seeing that she was obediently following his instructions. The corners of Song Qing-shu's mouth curled into a proud smile. He lifted her up with one hand and supported her slender waist with the other. Just as he was about to step onto the ground, Zhao Min suddenly stopped him. Wait a minute. Song Qing-shu was stunned. Zhao Min directly moved forward and gave him an incomparably lingering kiss. Song Qing-shu, I love you. I have no regrets in this life. Only then did Song Qing-shu understand that she was worried that the detoxification would fail this time, so she left her last words in advance. Waves of pity welled up in Song Qingshu's heart. As he helped her tidy up her messy hair, he gently said, "No regrets in this life. Doesn't that mean that you will regret it in your next life?" Uft. Zhao Min was indeed distracted. She knew that he was teasing her, but when she thought about the possibility that they would be separated by heaven and earth, she couldn't help but reply with deep love, "No regrets in this life." Feeling the deep love in her words, Song Qingshu solemnly said, "I will definitely cure you." Then, the two of their bodies joined together. Although Zhao Min's cheeks soon blushed and her eyes became misty, Song Qingshu did not have any distractions. He calmed himself down and transferred his Jinqi into her body. If he wanted to get rid of the worm hidden in her brain, he first had to turn her body into his. Obviously, it was not enough to just merge with her body. He also had to follow the path of the Taishan Sutra to open up some of the hidden acupoints in Zhao Min's body. Only then could he follow the path of the Taishan Sutra and use the Jinqi in her body. Zhao Min knew that he could not be disturbed at this moment. However, his Jinqi was flowing in her body, causing her to tremble from the depths of her soul. She was also sweating, but she still gritted her teeth and endured it so that she would not make any noise and disturb him. In the end, she even felt that her body was about to collapse. Her whole body could not help but tremble. If it were not for his strong arms holding her tightly, she would have collapsed on the ground. "You don't have to endure it. With my current cultivation and concentration, the sound of the outside world cannot affect me." At this moment, the two of them were so intimate. Song Qingshu was sensitive enough to notice the abnormality in her body. He quickly guessed what she was thinking and hurriedly reminded her. Hearing his words, Zhao Min felt as if she had been freed. Her whole body softly fell into his arms. The trembling of her soul and the joy in her heart turned into waves of celestial music that lingered in the room. Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat. He had underestimated her seduction. He hurriedly calmed his mind and sank into the realm of forgetfulness again to open up the remaining meridians for her. With his current cultivation and the fact that he was in the most intimate state with Zhao Min, it was not difficult for him to open up her hidden meridians. Next, he did not rashly try to open up the meridians in her brain. Instead, he first treated Zhao Min's body as his own. He first ran his Taishan Jinqi a few times. After it was completely stabilized, he separated a gentle wisp of Jinqi and sent it into her brain. The brain was the most delicate and fragile part of the human body. It could not withstand the collision of Jinqi. Song Qingshu could not help but admire the creator of the Taishan Sutra. He did not know what kind of genius he was to be able to cultivate Jinqi into the brain. Completely relax your body and mind. You cannot have any resistance. When it came to the brain, Song Qingshu did not dare to be careless. He hurriedly reminded Zhao Min again, "My body and mind are now yours. I am willing to do anything you want with me. Why would I resist you?" Now, Zhao Min finally understood why he had proposed to have skin contact with her. At first, she thought he was taking advantage of the situation to be a hooligan. Now, she understood that this was the only way she could cooperate with him without reservation. If she hesitated or resisted, her body would reject him. Then the possibility of successfully detoxifying her body would plummet. Willing to do anything? Then, with Shou Zhuo. In the end, Song Qingshu did not say what he was thinking. He did not want to cause her to resist subconsciously. Chapter 1591. Noticing the small golden person in his eyes, Zhao Min was startled. It must be known that Murong Jingwei, who had learned the divine blade chop, was in high spirits. In the end, when Song Qingshu used this move, his soul was destroyed. She wanted to close her eyes, but soon Zhao Min realized that he would not harm her. She immediately opened her eyes and looked at him, completely letting down her guard. Song Qingshu's eyes were as bright as gold. He could clearly sense Zhao Min's weak soul, but he didn't attack her soul. Instead, he used his Zhenqi to slowly explore the abnormality in her mind. Finally, the heavens didn't disappoint those who tried. He found the location of the insect corpse. The cadaveric bug seemed to feel the danger and showed signs of breaking out of its shell. However, under the pressure of Song Qingshu's powerful divine sense, the cadaveric bug shivered as soon as it showed its head. It hid there and dare not move. Song Qingshu would not be polite to it. The sword qi condensed by his divine sense attacked it directly. The cadaveric bug saw that it could not escape and was about to fight to the death. Unfortunately, it was destroyed by the sword qi as soon as it showed its head. All right. Song Qingshu slowly withdrew his genuine qi and withdrew from her body. He thought that although there was no therapy like the Gamma Blade in this era, he could achieve the same effect with the help of Sword 23. Zhao Min smiled. When she was about to say something, her face suddenly changed and she spat out a mouthful of blood. Noticing her pale face, Song Qingshu stroked her hair and comforted her. Don't worry. It's just the remains of the cadaveric bug and some extravasated blood. Zhao Min subconsciously looked over and saw some thin legs on the ground. When she thought about the insect corpse in her head, she couldn't help but turn pale. All right, it's all over. You don't have to worry about the poison anymore. Song Qingshu held her in his arms and comforted her. Thank you. Zhao Min raised her head and kissed him on the cheek. I've decided. I can grant you one wish. Tisk, Song Qingshu was unmoved. Back then, you also said that you would grant me my wish. Although you saved me that time, you also caused me to be poisoned by the 3-corpse divine pill. I still haven't settled this debt with you, and you still have the nerve to mention that matter. Zhao Min wrinkled her nose and snorted. Fine. Anyway, you women like to go back on your word, Song Qingshu said gloomily. It's different this time. I'm very happy right now, so I'll grant you a wish. Zhao Min blinked and blew at her seductively. And this wish is different from ordinary wishes. I can fulfill any condition of yours. Any conditions? Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat, and all kinds of beautiful images appeared in his mind. Are you serious? Of course not, Zhao Min snorted. I can tell from your expression that you're up to no good. So it depends on my mood. If I'm happy, I'll agree to your request, no matter how difficult it is. If I'm not happy, I won't even bother to do it. Song Qingshu's happy look instantly turned into depression. Well, it's better than nothing. Don't be like this. How about I compensate you now? Zhao Min put her arms around his neck, and her eyes seemed to be dripping water. Just now, in order to force the poison out, she didn't dare to do anything. However, the contact between the two of them made her feel a little uncomfortable. In addition, she thought that the poison had been cured, and he would most likely leave soon, so she couldn't help but be a little infatuated. Song Qingshu's eyes brightened. He picked her up and said, We're all sweaty just now. Let's have a bath together, haha. After some time, Zhao Min was already exhausted and fell into a deep sleep. Song Qingshu tenderly covered her with a quilt. Unlike her, because he practiced the mandala dhyana, he was more energetic after the bath. He couldn't fall asleep for a while, so he decided to go out for a walk. When he came out of the room, it was already nightfall. Song Qingshu hesitated for a moment, and then walked to concubine Huey's bedroom. Now that the poison in Zhao Min had been cured, the situation in Liao had gradually stabilized, and the Song dynasty's expedition to the north was imminent. He was afraid that he would have to leave soon. Before that, there were some things that needed to be arranged, such as Shun Bijuan. Although Song Qingshu was full of sympathy for the crown princess of the Song dynasty, he couldn't let her go now. After all, she was a very useful card, and it would be perfect to use her at the right time. However, he had to tell her in advance if he wanted to keep her in the palace. Otherwise, who knew if she would do something stupid in desperation? Now, it was naturally not convenient for Song Qingshu to appear in front of her with Yelu Hongji's appearance. He found a room, changed his clothes, put on a mask, and went to concubine Huey's bedroom. At this time, Shun Bijuan was sitting by the window, staring at the southern night sky in a daze. This period of time could be said to be a nightmare for her. First, she fell from the high and mighty crown princess to a prisoner, and then she learned that the Shun family had been exterminated. In order to take revenge, she had to enter the palace and submit to the Emperor of Liao. She had finally waited for Zhao Wei to come and save her, but not long after, he was caught up in the storm of having an affair with the Empress. Now it was unknown whether he was alive or dead, but there had been no news for so long. It was likely that he had met with misfortune, especially Xiao Xiaomao and Yelu Yisin, who had introduced her to the palace. They had just been caught in the case of rebellion. She didn't even have the hope of using the emperor's favor to take revenge for the Shun family. Even the eunuchs and palace maids in the palace were cold and did not serve her with all their heart. Thinking of the darkness in the future, Shin Bijuan couldn't help but silently cry. At this time, two muffled grunts came from outside the palace, as if someone had fallen. Shin Bijuan had been extremely sensitive during this time. Although the sound was soft, she still heard it. She couldn't help but turn around. Who is it? The door was pushed open and a heavy footstep approached. Unfortunately, because of the darkness, Shin Bijuan could not see the other's appearance. She unconsciously took a few steps back and grabbed a vase from the table to hold it in front of her as if it would give her some sense of security. Who are you? If you don't speak, I'll scream. In reality, her first reaction was to scream for help, but she was in a state where death was better than life. Her heart was filled with a trace of hope that this person was here to save her. It would be even better if it was Zhao Wei, so she hesitated. Oomph! The person in the darkness gave a heavy snort. Shin Bijuan instantly felt her chest tighten and her vision blur. She immediately understood that this person was an enemy and not a friend. This was a very high level of internal energy. It had injured her the moment they met. A tall old man walked out of the shadows. He looked her up and down and nodded with satisfaction, as expected of an outstanding beauty. No wonder you have the Dog Emperor's favor. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.